Happy Wednesday, Law Nerds. We are here to call to order the case of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Today, we are watching through live testimony of Johnny Depp. That is where we are going to be joining this trial in just a moment. For all of you in the replay crew, I will do my best to timestamp the different parts of the testimony as we go through it. And like yesterday, we will be taking a break when the court breaks for lunch and come back and join a second stream. Why? A, I need it. B, y'all need it. And C, it helps to keep the streams a little bit shorter, which is very much helpful on the YouTube end of things. So with that, we are live on both Facebook and on the interwebs. Let me know what you're coming in from, where you're coming in from, what you're drinking. We're going to pull up the court feed right now. Here's what I'm looking for from the testimony today. I am looking to see if Depp has tightened up his style of answering questions. I am looking to see if we get through all of his direct today and get into cross, or if cross is going to be tomorrow. I am looking to see if the defense is objecting more to narrative, which means when an answer kind of wanders off the point of the question, it gets into a long narrative, which is not the way you're allowed to answer questions on direct, or if the defense continues to let it go. We will have to see all of that together. So I'm going to roll the intro. We're going to pull up court feeds. Just a reminder, amazing law nerds. First, so good to see you. Mods, thank you. And second, this is a chat where we have conversation. We don't foster hate. We don't disparage either side. We're here to chat about the evidence. Right now, we're on Johnny Depp's side. Things are going to look more favorable to him, but we will get into Amber Heard's case and be talking about the things that are favorable to her later. We are trying to evaluate this. And if you aren't neutral, that is okay. It's okay to say, I like this side better than that side, as long as we keep an open mind and try to hear what both sides are saying and make sure that if Depp has an answer that's going to open a door or be difficult, that we acknowledge that too. So that is kind of the goal for today. Those are the things that I'm looking for. Let us pull up some court feeds and let's roll. Let's just get into this. Court should be kicking off right now, so let us go. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. And we are coming in. Johnny Depp just sat down on the stand with what looks like a cup of water. He is back with his hair back in a nice gray suit. Let's pull that up right now. And court TV commentators have been talking over this. And we just got to the first question. This court has been starting
as I said
very
yesterday,
promptly.
there was a hint of something with the having to do with the boots.
Their feed
coming
has a
off
lot of
and breaking
feedback.
routine.
So I might look for another one like I did yesterday. It's so good to see all of you.
Her attitude.
Lala, no, this is civil. This is just money stuff.
The way that she would
just money stuff in this one.
Begin to speak
and I can
to
talk
me
about that more a little bit.
Things started coming up, and it was.
Well, her outfit's not so green today. Hair's
just
back down.
Wrong about everything. If I made a statement about something that I had been familiar with, for example, in my work that I'd been chopping away at for a good 30-something years, I was suddenly wrong. And then beyond that, if you tried to explain yourself and correct.
Hello, Carolyn. Fair enough to not drink in the lab. Glad you're joining us.
The problem, the misunderstanding, it would then begin to heighten as
Hello, Patty,
Ms. Heard
welcome.
was unable to be wrong. It just didn't happen. She couldn't be wrong. So these little digs, and it would commence with sort of demeaning, name calling,
I have to refresh my
berated, sort of to be made a fool of.
That works.
And those would escalate into a full-scale argument. And in the beginning, as
We're jumping right into it today with how their
One
relationship
does.
went from she was the
one
most
sticks up for
incredible
oneself
creature, and she
in
was
a
everything.
debate, as it were, or an
to
argument over something, to try to
Things
prove a
changed
point.
and the
But
relationship
when
became
it
violent.
escalates, and then
His hair looks very
it's hard
good.
to
pulled
explain,
back,
but the argument would start here,
and
and then it
escalate.
would roll around and become this circular thing of its own. So you get back to the beginning, essentially, of the argument.
He's like, and then
Now
we're
it's
fighting about
heightened even
fighting.
more, but it's still circular, and there's no way in or out. If there's a dialogue between two people, both people need to speak, but there was no way to fit a word in.
Sounds like there was no
It
speaking.
was a sort of a rapid fire,
Oh, the jackhammer style we've heard
sort of
about from
endless
their counselor.
parade of
Sounds like a barrage.
insults and you know, looking at me like I was a fool, and I just couldn't. I was having difficulty in my mind, of course, and in my heart, dealing with that sort of barrage. And part of that is
Thank
I
you,
just
Jennifer. You're welcome.
I was
It's good to see
confused
you.
as to the fact that whatever her age was at the time of these various arguments, she was mid-20s to late 20s and into 30s. I couldn't understand how I had somehow arrived at where I'd arrived
He's like, I'm
from
in my
where I
50s.
came from in
How did I end
the
up in this
beginning of my
shit?
life, and worked for 30 plus years doing these things. It was astounding how wrong I was about everything that I've experienced within the movie, within the film industry, or in just life itself. No, I was sort of not allowed to be right, not allowed to have a voice. So at a certain point,
Bonnie H, I agree.
When
After
that-
him talking about their nicknames yesterday,
what enters your
that she's
mind,
trying to look like Lauren Bacall. That's the
is-
first thing I thought when I saw this hair today, too.
you start to slowly realize that you are in a relationship,
Congratulations
your
on
mother.
the birth, V.
in a sense. And I know that sounds perverse, and
No, it sounds like you
obtuse,
ended up with
but-
somebody
but
acting just
the-
like your mother. We
the
understand.
fact is that
We understand.
some people
Hello
search
from Northern Ireland,
for
Courtney. Thank
weaknesses in people. That is to say, sensitivities. And when you've told that person
you. Kelly,
your
today's going to be a tough day.
life, and what you've lived
Today's going to
through,
be a tough day.
what you've been through, just as happens in relationships, the more that
No, she's not Lauren Bacall,
became,
but I think that's the
ammunition
vibe she's going
for
for
Miss Heard
after yesterday, and she's also
to,
hiding her face a bit more.
to either verbally decimate me or to send me into a kind of tailspin of confusion and depression and well, it's not
That's where
a
the next
happy
question
day.
comes in.
It's
Generally.
not a happy week. It's not a happy month when you're constantly being told how wrong you are about this or that, what an idiot you are, or anything. It just then it increased, and it became an endless. It became that endless circle. Like, so as it escalated and continued to escalate, I went straight to what I had learned as a youth, which was to
Run away.
remove myself from the situation so that it couldn't continue. Because there's only so much your ears can hear and never forget. So I would remove myself from the situation as I'd done as a youth, as much as possible.
I don't doubt that.
Because
that's consistent with their marriage counselor who testified
I
saying that he
I certainly
would
didn't believe that there was any need
try to remove
for
himself.
these various subjects or arguments to come up.
She would rather hit him and keep him in the fight. She wanted him to stay and fight, and he wanted to get away.
So
and that's
quickly
all of what the
to ramp up so fast.
That's a lot of what their therapist said.
It was like you were pinned to a wall.
I will try to find a closed caption feed.
Just listen to
those
it.
Feeds weren't showing both of them, but I will. I'm going to be
so
looking
I
for
found the only way to find any sort of peace was to try to walk away. If she didn't allow me to walk
Jessica,
away,
not the rebel.
there were times when I would.
Amanda,
I would
I
just
think
go and lock
when they get
myself
into
in,
an expert with these dynamics, they will talk about that a lot.
the bathroom or anywhere that she couldn't get into, and that
I'll work on that, JC.
Constantly over the years.
What would happen when the fights would escalate other than going and hiding in the bathroom?
I'm sorry, what would happen?
Yes, and her,
well, if
her
they
side of
continue
this
to
is going to be
escalate,
the abandonment issues, and we'll hear about that. That she, every time he walked away,
if I
she got very
continue
triggered
to try to
and physically wanted to make him stay. It's a very bad dynamic for the two of them. There's
present
no doubt.
my version or my side of the story. When you're approached in a kind of when you're approached with such anger and
I've got an answer to this. I'm going to try to do it at a break because it's a
hatred,
longer answer.
it
I've got
seemed
thoughts.
like pure hatred for me. If I stayed to argue that, eventually I was sure that it was going to escalate.
Earlier in the trial,
violence.
One of the first few days of the trial, I don't remember exactly which day.
Many times it did.
And when you say violence, what are you referring to specifically?
And it's got to be
Miss Heard, in
specific.
her frustration and in her rage and her anger, she would strike out. She would. It could begin with a slap. It could begin with a shove. It could begin with throwing a TV remote at my head. It could be throwing a glass of wine in my face. But all in all, it was just it was a constant. There was a built-in list of as I said, my
finish the built-in
personal
list.
experiences, which I gave to Miss Heard, those things were.
He's saying that she's using what she knew about his childhood
those
against
facts were
him.
used against me.
Yeah.
As weapons.
Keep
especially when it came to my kids. I did. There was no need for it. there was no need for it. Too many lines were crossed. You couldn't see the lines anymore.
You mentioned that
That's an
Ms. Heard
interesting way
would
to
use
say it. So many
information you
lines were
gave her
crossed, you
against
couldn't
you
see
like
the
a
lines
weapon. Can you
anymore.
explain that a little bit?
George.
I mean, I've said this before in various interviews, but certainly in life.
You're on the stand. It doesn't matter. You need to say it now.
If I have one ambition, and ambition for me, when you equate it with Hollywood, has become an ugly word in a sense, because ambition means I want to be famous at any cost. I don't care what for. I just want to be famous. That's one thing. That's one part of it. If you have a hunger or a need or a drive to present your work, that to me is
these cats, y'all.
The way to go about it. Fame has nothing to do with it. So
we want to hear about the ambition.
Was more, I mean,
hopefully it's to be a good person.
The only ambition that I've ever had in my life arrived the second that my first child arrived. In the instant, which was to be a good parent, to be a great father, to be the best father I could. And there were several occasions where Ms. Heard would tell me what a bad father I was, and that I had no idea how to parent. And again, it falls into the same category as before. I couldn't understand how in 52 years or however old I was at the time, how I could be so wrong about
Natasha, I think that's exactly it.
Everything.
Both of their responses to their childhoods
one learns along the road
squarely with each other.
The result of the road is not important. It's the road that's important.
Absolutely.
Because we don't know exactly what's going to happen in 10 years. We don't know. So the road is what I pay attention to, and paying attention to trying to spend as much time with my children as possible. Even that would that could send Miss Heard into a monumental tailspin, where I could hardly ever go and see my kids and spend time with my kids, because she had to have me there at all times for her own needs.
So,
and that was
let
something that
go. We've been talking about her outfits because
once you realize
she has not been
happening,
consistent in the way she dresses for court, and there's motivation to that we've been talking about. For interest of why she's doing certain things on certain days, it's calculated,
a little more
and that's part of
grim,
playing to the jury as well.
Dire.
So that's why we've been talking about it.
And that I was not prepared to.
But definitely not fangirling about it.
I would not hear
that green wall's tough.
The words, "You're a bad father. You're a terrible father.
My cats are
awful father."
Fighting.
So
stop it.
One can only take so much of that before bits of your brain, bits of your heart begin to, the valve gets shut off.
Sherry, no, this is his normal cadence of speaking.
And
I also think reliving trauma is very hard.
And you know
he talked about that yesterday.
It's just to,
he's an introvert.
To slice you up. It's to bring you down. It's to demean you. It's
and this is really hard stuff to talk about.
Bring you into a place where you start to believe that there's something wrong with you.
He just described the gaslighting. I'm going to summarize it.
there's plenty wrong with me. There's plenty wrong with a lot of people. But in all of these situations, my main goal was to retreat, because I think in life, most important is pick your battles. If there's a battle to be fought that is grave and important, then that must be dealt with. But small insults and kind of teenage or high school tactics, this bullying, if you will, was
He was
becoming too
hesitant to
much.
call it that. That's very
take.
interesting.
So
But
why did you stay with Ms. Heard given
It is
this type of behavior?
It's baiting. I'm going to look for that feed in just a minute. I like seeing
That's a very
her
complicated
juxtaposed to
answer.
him,
I would.
and some of the feeds we don't get it. Yes, it's a complicated answer, but you have to answer it. That's why we're
I can
here.
only say that I stayed through all that. I'm sure that it's somehow related to my father remaining
Puppet.
stoic, as my mother would beat him to death. I'm sure it had a lot to do with having been in a beautiful, wonderful 14, 15-year relationship with Vanessa, the mother of my children. Raising those kids was, there was, I had no interest in being a, the words that they use that I dislike very
What
much.
words? What are those words?
A celebrity
There we go.
or an entertainer or a
He never wanted to be the center
fame
of
is a
attention.
strange word because I could never equate it with myself. I pumped gas, I worked construction, I printed T-shirts, I dug in, I had many, many jobs
It's
before any
interesting
of this happened to me.
that's how he still
So
sees himself.
I've been able to live both sides of that life, of life. I know the very lows, and I know the very highs of where my life has gone, and it's not. I don't. Again, it would be pure idiocy for me to sit up here as an actor who's been very, very fortunate.
It's interesting watching him
over
in
the
real
years, and I
time
can
try to
only say
explain
it's-
who he is,
It's luck in the sense
how
that
he
someone
sees
hands
the
you
world.
the ball in the beginning,
and he doesn't
and
want to
you run with
answer why he stayed
you
with her,
run
and
as
that's
far
why
as you
he's
can
bridged
before you get tackled.
to talking about him. He doesn't want to talk about why he stayed.
So
but he has
that's
to. His lawyer should follow up and ask him again,
what I've
why
always
did you
done.
stay?
But what happens is when the word celebrity or when you are a, what do they call it, a public figure.
What do they
That's
call
what
it?
is.
A
A
public
celebrity
figure.
or a public figure. Again, not complaining, but there are things that are very uncomfortable. And
Steph,
that
I think this
to
is his
say
goal of this entire
that
trial.
at that point, anybody can say anything they want to about you.
She
and that's
will
happened to
testify,
me
and I'll
over
talk about that more at the break.
36
For anyone who hasn't,
years or more.
Heard yesterday's talk.
That
No, he still didn't answer the question. I'm having a hard time
things can be
tracking the
printed in
questions at this
newspaper
point.
that are utterly false. This is even early on. So this is where that privilege, I suppose, that they call the privilege of celebrity, that's where that sticks a knife in you. Because it's one of those that's one of those situations where your arms are too short to box with God, There are
He
too
loves a
many
metaphor. I
of
don't know
them
this one, where
coming
your
at
arms are
you.
too short to box with God. I mean, I'm a T-Rex too. I get
so
it. But
yes,
why did you stay?
I don't know what her motivations
No, why did you stay?
were if there was some species of jealousy, or there was some species of maybe just
Don't analyze her.
I don't know.
Why did you stay?
But in any case, the elevation and the escalation of these day-to-day arguments were simply unnecessary. It was not to help the relationship. It did not help the relationship. It wasn't meant to help the relationship.
It doesn't matter. Why did you
It was
say?
meant to feed her need for conflict. She has a need for conflict. She has a need for violence.
He did, but now he's
It
speculating
erupts
on her, and I'm
out of nowhere,
surprised
and,
that the defense team didn't object
what
when
I
he's saying
learned,
she
the
had a
only thing I
need
learned
for
to do with it is
violence.
exactly what I did as a child. Retreat. Just
I'm
take a step back.
surprised they
which
didn't
I told
object
her,
to
we need to
him
remove
saying
ourselves from each other, even for
that
an
audio
hour,
exists.
a day, anything.
We need to separate.
Because this can't go on.
And that audio exists too. We can't
no
go
one can
on.
live like this.
Someone's
But
going to
why
get really
did I
hurt.
stay? I stayed.
Thank you. Back around.
I suppose because my father stayed.
There we go.
I suppose because I had been in that relationship with Vanessa, and that was lost, and I didn't want to.
It's okay to say you didn't want to be
I
alone.
didn't want to fail.
There you go.
I wanted to try to make it work. I thought maybe I could help her. I thought maybe I could bring her around, because the Amber Heard that I knew for the first year and a half was not this suddenly this opponent. It wasn't my girl. It was she had become my opponent, and everything that I did just didn't fit her. It wasn't. She didn't accept it.
I wonder if his attorneys will bring this back around
So I
to
stayed
kind of
because,
chasing that
of course,
first
I didn't
high,
want to fail.
which he talked about yesterday.
I didn't want
chasing
didn't
that
want to
first
hurt
year, wanting it to get
anyone.
back to the way it was, wanting
especially
the good
Miss Heard.
time.
I didn't want to
wanting her to be how
break
she was
her
at the beginning.
heart. I remember very well
He still seems
that
like he's
when my
protecting her
father
a little
left
bit on the
and
stand.
My mother, Betty Sue, had that first attempt at suicide that I woke up to.
Did she threaten that in this
and that
relationship
visual in my head,
after she knew his mom
and
had
that was
attempted to take
a
her
direct
life?
result of my father's leaving.
Holy shit. That's pretty powerful.
Ms. Heard had spoken of
Wow.
suicide on a couple of occasions, so that also becomes
I have to take
a
notes.
factor. That's also something that always lives in the back of your brain, and that you fear. Because when I would leave, sometimes, many times when I would try to leave, she would, stop me at the elevator with the security guards, crying, screaming, I can't live without you. I'm gonna die. But you had to get out.
I
There
hope the
were even
jury
a couple of times when I did escape and I got to my house,
heard how powerful that
arrived
was.
at my house in Sweetser,
And I hope
and then
that
5
this
minutes
comes
later
back
she
around.
would arrive in the I don't know what car she was driving at the time, but she would arrive in her nightgown, screaming in the parking lot in front of my house.
I hope that his
Screaming to high
attorney
heavens. It'd be 4 a.m.
brings
3
this up in
a.m.
closing.
It was ludicrous. It was
She's getting agitated.
It was out of control. It was uncontrollable.
Did there come a time when you and Miss Heard
He's still
started
talking about
recording
Heard's
your
behavior,
arguments?
not her, as being
Yes.
out of control. I'm glad we're getting to the
In
recordings.
fact, it was. I was the first person of the two of us to record conversations. And it was for this reason.
Good. Look to the jury when you're talking about it. Just tell them why, which is hard to do.
We would have been talking the night before or arguing the night before, and she would say something. There would be these demeaning, berating insults. There would be these
which
jabs.
is why
There
we
would
heard all of the commentary
anything to
about his
make
mom
me feel
doing that
small
yesterday.
And like nothing.
Karen, that's fascinating.
So what
This trial's going to need an
was,
internet deep dive on the manipulation through the
I'm
clothing.
going to record the conversation, and I told her this.
Well, in California,
I'm
you
going
have
to
to.
record. I'm going to get my phone and I'm going to record our conversation because I want you to
I think
hear
she's writing notes,
what
which is wise.
you've said to
That's
me
where you
tomorrow.
put that.
So that because she would deny having said those things. What are you talking about? You know, it was surreal.
So
She
he
had
started
completely
recording
denied things
because
she
of the
said
gaslighting.
directly to my face.
Good
in a
morning, Linnell.
heated
Good to see you, lady.
and volatile way. And she denied it. So I went to her and I said, I'm going to record
The gaslighting.
us. And I did.
It's either the
And we
judge or the
recorded
attorney's
the,
typing
conversation.
near one of the microphones.
Which, when she was on tape,
I think so, Kimmy. I think that's why they're doing it now, so
first
the
time,
experts
it
can build
wouldn't-
on the rest
it
of it.
escalated a bit, but she was, well, it was clear that she was performing for the tape because it was being recorded. So that was another clue that
They're fucking with my fuck
something was
candle.
slightly rotten
These
in the
two.
state of
We're
Denmark.
going to
As it were.
squeeze in a break here, but don't
No,
worry. You
don't
are not
squeeze
going
in
to
a
miss
break.
thing. We are going to
Court
hit the
TV.
pause button,
We're going
pick
to
back
switch
right up where we
feeds.
left off
This
after
is
this
why
break. You're
I
watching
like
Court TV
seeing
live.
both feeds from Court TV, but I do hate the way they go to commercial breaks. So we're just going to pop on a different feed. Is that the back end of my channel?
Violence
Yes.
was unnecessary.
Oh, this is a much lower volume, but it doesn't have all that reverb. I'm going to gain it up a
Why
little.
would you hit someone to
There we go.
make them agree with you? I don't think it works.
Mr. Depp, you mentioned the term monster, and I think we heard about that in the
Oh, good. We're
opening
switching back and forth. We're staying on this feed. Thank you, Sky
What does
News.
the term monster mean to you?
Good, good, good,
The term monster means to me,
good. They
Um,
needed to address this.
you know, in the beginning, she had used a different word to explain the same thing. And she would use the word demons, that my demons were coming out, that she had noticed that there was a great change in my attitude or my aggressive nature. Or
just doing her whole like morning
she
hydration.
would
Follow taco.
say that the demons had come out and they had control of me and that sort of thing. I don't remember exactly how monster came out, but that word stuck and it stayed, well, until this day. What I believe the monster was in Ms. Heard's mind was her intense,
In your mind.
Objection, Your Honor.
intense,
Yes.
His
Yes.
belief about what monster meant in Miss Heard's
Yes.
mind is not
All right.
relevant.
That's an appropriate
Let
objection.
me ask a
All
different
right,
question.
I'll sustain the objection. Go ahead.
He
When
needed to
you
answer
use
what
the
it
term
meant
monster, what
to
were you
him.
referring to?
Yes.
In your conversations with Ms. Heard?
In his texts
when
and
I
stuff, he
used the
needs to
term monster
explain what
with
it
Ms.
meant.
Heard, I was placating. If she had referred to me as being a monster,
He was trying to
there was
mirror
no
her
way that I was
language.
going to sit there and go through a 45-minute argument about, you know, you're a monster. No, I'm not. You're a monster. No, I'm not. You're a monster. No, I'm not. It was an impossibility. So what do?
He has
You
to answer this
accept
more directly.
Her vernacular, you accept what the word that she uses, and then you use that word to placate her, so
So he didn't
that
want to fight
it
anymore.
would at least calm part of the aggression. It would lessen the attacks. You know, so explaining the monster was for me
Interesting.
I mean, she had told me many times that the monster was only me when I was
So he's going with what she said.
using drugs and alcohol. But even when I was stone cold sober off of alcohol and substances aside from my
Does all the dirty work for you.
I don't know what that is. Hold on. That might have been Court TV coming back on. Apologies. That was me being a professional, folks. Sorry.
cocaine or
She accuses him of being the monster when he's altered, which
drinking like
is separate
some
from
sort of,
what the other testimony has been in this. The other testimony has been that
drinking.
he was very
like
similar,
I was,
drunk
some
and
kind
or
of
sober. He was very similar
19th
under
century sailor.
the influence or not.
It's
Sorry, that woke me up too.
that was the word she clung to.
Oh yeah, I've got my headphones in
describe,
too. Scared the shit out of me.
It was in her mind.
We're all tuned well back in.
Not mine.
It was in her mind,
How did
not
your
mine.
relationship with Miss Heard affect your substance use?
I like that they're showing her more today. I appreciate the switching back and forth because we need to see her reaction to
For
his
example,
testimony.
When we were on the road, when you're traveling from, if you're on a press tour,
See, again,
or if you're
he doesn't
making a
answer
film and you're
directly.
staying in hotels or this or that. I would always have to get a different.
That's not.
Or we would always have
That's
to
not
book
what she
an
asked.
extra room.
And the defense
that I
might
was
start
able to
objecting that
escape
he's
to,
non-responsive.
So I didn't have to lock myself in another bathroom.
He's not being very responsive.
It breaks you down.
How did it
The
affect your
constant
substance
haranguing
use?
breaks you down.
You answer, then explain. But
And there's a part of you that says, "Listen, if I'm going to be accused of this, might as well just do it."
this might end up on a
But
shirt, Mooney
It
Magoo.
never exceeded.
That's our new definition of WAP.
It never. My substance abuse or use, the alcohol that I used or drank was, again, purely.
Kelsey, I'm reading trauma
It's that little boy
and introversion,
who didn't want to hear.
but the
or
jury
didn't wanna
gets to
feel the
decide
pain
how they read it.
of his mother turning him into some kind of ball of insecurity and pain. So
Hello,
yes,
Amna in Pakistan.
I was more inspired by Miss Heard to reach out for a numbing agent.
I was inspired by Miss Heard to reach out for a numbing agent, and we
because of
saw
the-
that in his
because
nurse's
of the
notes.
constant
Your lawyer
clashes, because
very
of
much
the-
would like for you to say that it
there wasn't-
exacerbated your use.
Maybe a few days here and there, but there wasn't a day that you'd wake up and you'd expect something was going to hit the fan, and it, pretty much like clockwork, it did. So yes, I had to have something.
This makes his text messages make
to
more sense,
distance
though.
me and distance my heart from those verbal attacks. I had to have something to be able to maintain me, and I'm afraid for
That's sad.
a while because of placation, because I didn't want to rock the boat, as it were. Again, you pick your battles. So placation seemed the best route if I was unable to escape her clutches.
How, if at all, did Miss Heard
I'll do
try to
this at the
support
break.
you in abstaining from the drugs and alcohol?
A lot
as
of
she
it goes to the
requested?
way that he talks, like the way he
Well, I mean, verbally,
wanders.
and she had been quite clear verbally and pretty bullish and brutish
Good
about
to see you, 50, feisty, and fabulous.
wanting me to
Do you keep wanting to interrupt and ask a next
telling
question?
me
Because
that I
I
needed
do.
to stop drinking. But drinking was
Fred, don't step on my keyboard.
basically drinking wine with her, and I suppose maybe from youth, I don't know, but I've always had
You don't need to psychoanalyze yourself. We're not in
pretty
therapy.
high tolerance for
Just explain.
alcohol, especially not spirits, I had a
I
pretty
got the
good
sense that he was
tolerance
saying
for
that drinking wine wasn't even
alcohol,
fun with her.
substances and things of that nature. But
That's what I was getting from him.
there was no, I had no. I've worked with therapists, drug counselors, who have actually said the words to me because I wanted to know.
Oh, we binged.
I wanted
Thanks
to know.
everybody for doing the likey subscribey things.
Am I an alcoholic?
Appreciate
Am
it. We're at 205.
an
Thank you guys. Don't
alcoholic?
forget to like and subscribe. He wanted to know
Or
if he
is
was an
this just
alcoholic.
the same thing that I did as a kid when I took my mom's nerve pill? Do I have a drinking problem? And
I forgot. I think the question was, did Miss Heard try to get you to
it
sober
essentially
up?
came down to this.
Something like that.
Do you have a drinking problem, Johnny?
Objection calls for hearsay. What the doctors told him.
I'm not sure he's saying what the doctors told him.
It's going to state of mind. Just let him explain.
Testified to.
Oh, if you can make that clear, I guess.
I understand that the question got lost.
Let me ask you a different question.
No, just ask the
Mr.
same
Depp.
question and get him to answer it.
Let's let him object to another one.
They're going.
How
They have
often
been
was Miss Heard
refrained in their
drinking in your
objections. To be
presence
fair, they've been
while you were in a
refrained
relationship?
in their
Oh.
objections.
Well, yeah. Ms. Heard drank, she took a shine to a very nice Spanish wine called Vega Sicilia. She and all her friends did.
Were they all drinking expensive wine?
Yeah, the wine would come out, and Ms. Heard could very easily drink 2 bottles of wine per night. Well, not a problem.
Okay, look, everybody liked to drink.
What I found
Everybody
strange was
used
when
drugs.
I did
The reason this is an issue is because Heard's team is going to try to make it a very
Did-
big issue.
get sober from the I was off the opiates that I had been addicted to prior
Sober from
prior to
opiates.
a year or so before, a couple of years before. She asked me if I would stop drinking to save the relationship, of course. I stopped drinking. And
That was what they were trying to get him to answer on the last
I always found it
question. The wine is
odd that
$550 a bottle. Vitamin C. This is
in
helpful
support
information in the
of
chat, but
me
that's some
not
wild shit right
drinking,
there. Whiskey's much
that
cheaper.
she might
I guess some of
stop
it's not.
drinking. But she did not. She continued. And
So she
I
wanted
didn't
him
make
to
a big
stop
deal
drinking.
about it. In fact, I would open her wine, I would pour her a glass. That went on for
Her drinking
many,
or
many
not
months,
is not
you
really
know,
relevant to
in
his
my
own
sobriety.
addiction.
Like I said, I think I was sober for around
I
18
wonder
months.
if his team will try to spin it as this was controlling
Then
and not really about addiction.
there was a time when I was asked to, and I'd been
So
off of alcohol, I'd been off of drugs.
I think that might be what they
except
try
for
to
the
do.
medication.
But even if you're an
that
alcoholic,
I'm
she's still
prescribed.
allowed to drink. You
I
know,
had to go to London.
It's kinda wandering.
to give a lifetime achievement award to a dear old friend.
this is objection
who was an
non-responsive.
elderly
All
man,
of this
great
is
actor called his name's Christopher Lee.
all of this
And
is
he was a dear friend.
narrative. They're not
And I
objecting
was
because it doesn't
surprised-
hurt
he was
them,
being surprised by
and it might lose the
my
jury's
showing up
attention.
on stage. I just flown in from the States, and he was surprised by me arriving.
I think
to
they're
give him
going
this
to talk
award.
to about this,
And
about being
Christopher
about control
came up and accepted the award.
for sure.
We walked. They brought us backstage to this beautiful library where I was with Christopher and his wife.
No, Whitney, that makes
and,
sense.
A waiter
Why would you
came up
provoke
and
a
had
newly
3
sober person?
glasses of
It's fair.
champagne. And Christopher handed one to his wife. He handed one to me, and then he had the other. And there was a photographer there.
None of this
And-
answers the question directly. I'm surprised they haven't objected at this point.
The glass came up to toast, and I just, in my head, I thought, it's just champagne, a little bit tink to toast Christopher and his Lifetime Achievement Award. And so I've had half a glass of champagne with Christopher Lee and his wife.
There must be an incident.
Immediately after that award ceremony, I went to pick up Miss Heard and take her to dinner at a restaurant. And I told her that I'd had a half a glass of champagne with Christopher. And I thought, listen, it's not like, you're sitting in a pub guzzling
I want to know more about
pints
her
of
necklace.
snake bites or Guinness or doing shots of Jägermeister or it wasn't
I want to
even
know about her necklace. Is it a
at
half
that
heart, like
point,
a
it wasn't
BFF
even
necklace?
for
I've got questions.
need to
It looks like a best friend's necklace
bury
with the half heart. He said
feelings or
Jägermeister and
emotions.
snake bite.
It was literally a joyous occasion for Christopher, and I said to her,
So she was mad that he had a glass of
I
champagne.
enjoyed it. It gave me the opportunity to enjoy the actual champagne, the drink, and my appreciation for wine and winemaking, and that I've been fascinated with for years and years.
I don't think it's helping him
And
that
I
he's
saw nothing
trying
wrong.
to
And I
say
said, I'd like to have a glass of champagne.
that
And she was
he
sitting there with
enjoyed the taste of alcohol and that
a glass of wine.
is different. I don't know if this distinction helps
And
the jury, and I don't know if it's answering this
We were
question.
in the restaurant, and she absolutely
Lost her
it
shit?
and
Okay.
got up and stormed to the ladies' room.
That's the point of this story.
And I told my security and driver, I said, I think we have to go.
We have to look into
leave.
Eve having the other half of the necklace.
So we left the restaurant and went home. And the mere suggestion of me sipping a glass of champagne or having 1 glass or 2 glasses of wine, she went apoplectic. It was, I was weak. I was a complete mess. I was an alcoholic. I was going to ruin everything. Your kids are not proud of you. They can't stand what you're doing to yourself. So at
this
that
just
point,
fed
I
into the
said to her,
psycho.
okay, listen,
The cycle.
How
Sorry,
about
I was
this?
looking in the
You
chat
want
and
to
read
support me not
the
drinking.
word I wasn't trying to say.
I've never asked you this before. How about you
They can object here.
stop drinking? How about you get sobriety
Yeah.
and share this sobriety with me to support me and help me through this?
Heard is in a tough
What did she say to
position.
that?
No.
She's in a tough
No.
position because everything
She
she
said
does
no.
is going to be
She said she didn't have a
dissected
problem.
by the jury. But yes, she does
But,
present as cold. Even
I've
sitting there,
never had a
Johnny Depp
physical
seems
addiction to
warmer.
alcohol. I don't.
All right. So he's saying he's not an alcoholic.
How often have you seen Ms. Heard use other illicit drugs in your presence?
Several times.
And what drugs were those?
Well, she
I
was
don't
always
think they're
quite
afraid
fond
to
of
object. I think they're
MDMA,
afraid of what
which is ecstasy.
the jury might think.
And
this is consistent.
mushrooms.
Oh, no, the witness who talked about the MDMA use was excused. So that's not in evidence. So we don't have any of this in evidence yet, but it
She
will
had
be.
some medications that she was on already.
This fight of who took more
that were
drugs and alcohol is not going to go well for either
one
of
in
them.
particular was
And I
quite a
don't
high
think the jury's
velocity.
going to give a shit at the end.
Speed, if you will.
So speed,
Called, I don't know if I can
MDMA.
say the name. Am I allowed to say the name?
are you allowed to say the name of drugs? Yeah, say it.
Doesn't matter.
That's not necessary.
Drugs.
What?
But it seemed like she was also stealing
often
his
did you see Ms.
Ritalin or
Heard
Adderall
take MDMA.
because he was on a prescription for one of those two. I don't remember which one was on the notepad. Edwina, I'd lose my mind if I was
a
in this
dozen
courtroom.
times,
I also didn't do civil. I did
20
criminal.
times.
But I'd rather be here talking to y'all about it.
During the
It's
course of the
much
year,
more
during
fun.
the course of the year.
And I don't have to be at night prepping
And
this.
what about mushrooms?
But we'll talk about my time in trial, I'm sure.
Mushrooms a little less. Mushrooms
The jury might not
probably
give a shit about any of this.
6, 7 times.
I agree. The only reason I think Depp's team is getting into this is because Heard's
Mr. Depp, do
team
you recall at the beginning
has made
of her
so
opening,
much
Ms. Heard's counsel mentioned
about
that the
his
first time you
use.
supposedly struck Ms. Heard was in response to a comment about one of your tattoos.
Yes, I remember.
And what is your response to that?
Oh, good. He said he didn't strike her ever yesterday. So it's got to be consistent with that.
It didn't happen. I've never struck Miss Heard. As I said yesterday, I've never struck Miss Heard. I've never struck a woman in my life. I'm certainly not going to strike a woman if she decides to make fun of a tattoo that I have on my body. It's like
He's like, that's dumb.
going into
Yep, it's
someone's
dumb.
journal and picking out things you don't like.
His analogies
She
are
had made
hilarious.
mention. There was no incident of argument when the tattoo thing had been brought up many times, and I mean, there's really nothing I can do. I've always thought of my body as a journal, if you will, to mark experiences, to mark life experiences.
That's how I feel about my
You know,
tattoos
for
too.
example, when my
They
first
are
child was born, I
visual
had
diary.
her name tattooed
I relate.
over my heart.
A young
which is
jury is going to
where
relate to
her
this too.
Little head used to be when I rock her to sleep. I marked my boy's birth by tattooing myself for him. So no one can go back, or no one should go back and rewrite their journals. Why would I take such great offense to someone making fun of
Chat, all of you with tattoos, do you feel the
tattoo,
same way about your tattoos?
on my body?
They mark your
that,
life.
That allegation never made any sense to me whatsoever.
Steve, a lot of the jury are
tattoos that you had that Ms.
described
Heard
as
had an
younger
issue
men.
with, to your understanding?
Now, what people describe as younger, I don't know.
Well,
anymore. Yes, Chad,
what
with the
a
tattoos come through.
tattoo that I believe is up here, which used to say Winona Forever.
The Wino
was a
Forever
former
tattoo.
girlfriend.
We know.
And, we'd been together for a few years. Winona Ryder, and
We're getting to that right now, Haley.
when we broke up, how do you fix that? I did go back and rewrite my journal to some degree. I took off the last two letters and had it say Wino Forever, just because I thought it was
Funny.
I thought it was again through
Just be honest.
pain.
Say it. You thought it was funny. That's dark
comes
sense of humor.
Humor has to come in there at some point into the pain, and that's how you play it out in your mind. So I have I think sometimes abstractly in that sense. So I changed it to Wino Forever.
Just say you thought it was funny. It's fine. The jury's going to relate. Just
Any
we don't
other
need any more
tattoos?
detail.
Well, she was very encouraging in me getting
Who?
a tattoo of
Amber?
her name.
Yes.
Or
Amber wanted to be written in the
whatever,
journal.
and I waited a while, and then I did it. I got a full tattoo of her, and it ironically wasn't long after that 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 everything started going sideways. I was doing anything I could to
He's trying to skip over those uncomfortable
bring
parts real fast, it
a
seems.
smile to her face,
He was trying
as
to placate
opposed
her.
to
He got
the
the tattoo,
frown,
and then everything went
and
sideways.
then the onslaught of whatever problems she was seeing or experiencing. I
He's going to have to slow down those parts
would try to wake her up
where he
with
talks
laughter.
about how difficult this relationship was, and he's going to have to stop
singing
jumping
stupid
over them
songs in her ear while she.
because it's the point of this case.
I generally just tried to keep bringing her mood up. Sometimes it worked. Many times it didn't.
That's very consistent
Um,
in abusive
but
relationships to try to
I
placate.
tried, and I wanted to try.
It doesn't mean
because,
she
as I
didn't do
said,
that to him
I
too.
didn't want to fail, and at the time, not knowing fully, not understanding fully what I was, if you'll excuse the term, up against, I kept trying. I kept
It
trying.
seems a little bit
but,
like he's still trying not to
to
piss
no
her
avail
off
whatsoever.
with his
It
testimony.
just got worse.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to fast forward a little bit to May of 2014.
I
Could you
wanna
please
know
tell the
more
jury what project
everything
you were
going
working on
sideways.
in May of 2014.
Oh, he's got coffee. The judge allowed you to have coffee on the witness stand?
14,
Celebrity treatment up in here, y'all.
May of 2014. I'm
Normally it's just water. I honestly don't care. I don't think
There
it's a
were-
big
there
deal.
were
I
a
think
number
it's
of
kind of
films
funny
that I
though.
made in succession. I can't remember if that might have been Pirates. No, I can't. Mordecai or May of, I don't remember what can you remind me what May of 2014 film was?
Were you filming Black Mass in Boston of May of
Yes, okay,
2014?
yes, excuse me, yes.
At least
Yes,
the
yes.
defense didn't object to
Oh,
that. They
yes.
could
I
have, but
was,
this is foundational.
I was filming a film called Black Mass in Boston.
Black Mass,
and,
another pirate film?
Mr. Heard had come with me. and I had to, for the film, I had to.
It could be water, but water would probably be in a water.
There were very
bottle.
early calls to work because I was
Like
I
yesterday, he had
a
Fiji
number
water.
of prosthetics, glued to my face, and blue contacts, so that I could resemble the actual. It was based on the true story of James Whitey Bulger.
That's right.
And so I had to go in quite early to get the prosthetics glued to
That's
my
right.
face.
He played Whitey Bulger. That's
all
right.
That, and
Yes, that's right.
then you'd work.
Chat, y'all are
the
so
whole day,
helpful.
and then at the end of the night,
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the things.
They would
Hey, Lori, good to
remove
see you.
the prosthetics, which takes
Are
if
you
it took
objecting
3 hours
along
to
at
put
home
them on,
too?
it took about an hour to take them off. So
It
on
is
top
interesting
of
that he calls her Miss Heard.
what could be anywhere between a 14, 16, 17-hour day of work.
Well, thank you. I'm glad your TV and
What with
YouTube
the-
think that I'm trending.
Application.
We're just having
of
a conversation.
of the
You
makeup
guys can like the stream.
and then the
I should probably share it
taking
on
off
Twitter. I'm
of
going to do
the-
that in a second.
applications.
Was Miss Heard staying with you in Boston during the entire time?
She's like,
that
can we
you were
please get to the point that
making
matters?
film?"
I don't care about the
Yes.
prosthetics. But he's going to tell his story.
Yes, she was.
She knows what's coming.
And who from your staff was in Boston with you during that time?
She knows what's coming. You could see the breathing.
Jerry Judge. Keenan Wyatt.
The defense attorneys
Stephen
have been very
Duders.
restrained in this, by the way. Even though he made a crack about it, they have been very restrained and not objecting.
Nathan Holmes, I believe. And I believe Malcolm Connolly was there as well. So I would have assistants, sound technician, security. I believe that was it.
Mr. Depp, we heard yesterday from Mr. Wyatt
that was
about a
brief.
flight that you and Mr. Wyatt and Miss Heard were on from Boston to LA in May 2014. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And could you please tell the
The
jury
flight.
what you remember about that specific flight?
Amber alleges that she kicked him. He says
Um,
he didn't. This is the flight that we heard
I
from
remember
the
as I was
soundtrack
still shooting,
he witnessed
filming
none of
Black
that.
Mass. Before I did Black Mass, the film, my sister Christy and I were talking about the oxycodones that I had been. Again, that was the monkey on my back. That she came to me. She told me she had read this book of Dr. Kipper's book, and I read Dr. Kipper's
Who's
book,
their private physician?
a good majority of it, and I agreed that I would do the detox. I would kick the opiates, but there was no time to do it before the film. So
It's fair not to detox when you're filming.
the nurse, which was Nurse Debbie Lloyd, when she came to Boston, she had asked me, "What is your dosage? How many of these are you taking per day?" And someone who had
We're all
been
curious.
under the kind of lock and key of a prescription drug that is highly addictive. I mean, with built-in barbs, that this drug does not want you to stop taking it. She asked me how many I took per day, or
Him describing
my
addiction
dosage.
to painkillers
And
is very interesting.
Of course, as any person who is addicted, and essentially
Anna, I'll talk about this at the break. I have some thoughts about it.
a fool to the drug.
It might be that they really just can't, and this is
you
the
know
way
how
he
important
talks.
it is because you have
He's
felt
on
the
trial to tell his
sting when
story.
It doesn't
He's repeating himself
you
from
don't
yesterday,
have it.
but
So
he's paid millions in legal
I
fees to
agreed-
get to this
I
trial,
agreed to the
and we're all going to hear what he has to say.
detox.
And that might
And
be part of why they're
She
not
asked me how many
cutting
I
him off.
took. I told her
It also might unsettle him being
obviously,
talked over,
more
like me right now, because
than
Heard
I
talked
was
over him so
taking,
much. That might also put
purely
him in a difficult
because
place to testify. I think
when
we're
you're in
going to
that
see
frame
him
of
testify on
mind,
direct most of the day
one
today,
thing that you do not
and a full
want
day
to-
tomorrow for cross.
a
at
situation
a
you don't want
minimum.
to find yourself
I think
in
we've got 2 more days.
is having no access.
Lily
to
Rose,
the
yes, he
thing that will
calls it
make you
roxycodone. There's a
not
difference
high.
between
It
roxycodone
will
and
make you-
oxycodone. We talked
it
about it
gets you-
yesterday,
You only
I
get
was
better
unaware.
from it.
but he talked
you
about this
start
at
to
length
get
yesterday.
The shakes
Yep,
and the
this is the way
tremors
for
and
him to
the-
get his entire story out there. That's it.
You could feel this traveling into your system. Your
And his attorneys can let the defense object to him
receptors are
and
out in mass.
see how the jury
and
portrays
the
it. But him
receptors are
talking about
demanding
your
that drug.
pain receptors and
If you-
addiction,
if you don't give
the defense could
the
object to
drug
all of
to the
this. He's not
to the
an expert
receptors,
in this. He doesn't know.
you're
This
gonna
is all
you will start going
hearsay.
into a pretty nasty withdrawal.
It goes to
and,
why he decided the things he
and
decided,
it could
and they're letting it go.
which
He's just bridging to what he wants to talk about.
and has ended in sort of seizures.
Carla,
you can go into
Trinidad and Tobago's
pretty
beautiful.
nasty
Thank you.
seizures.
But that's why he
So,
didn't want to detox
I
while he was
told
filming because
Debbie
of the
Lloyd,
seizures. That's a long way to
uh,
get there. I will
more
detox
than was necessary
after I film.
so that I could always have 1 or 2 in my pocket on the just in case. So I didn't find myself,
Just
on
in
a
case.
plane or anywhere without 1 in my pocket to stop
He's saying he's got one hand in his pocket
the inevitable
and another one making a peace
Um,
sign.
body cramps and nausea and
Painkiller addiction is
stomach cramps
horrible.
and
I think
seizure of
that
the
he
bones
will
and
probably be
shaking
on
and-
cross tomorrow, maybe late in the day today.
and also it's quite an emotional ride as well.
But he's explaining why he didn't want to
So-
detox while filming. That it's a long way to get there. We've repeated it 4 times.
Yes,
I can't criticize him for
Before
that. I do it
the
too.
flight, Amber and her assistant, Savannah McMillan, wanted to be picked up in New York
Patty, this I think is
and then have the
24.
plane
It's
fly
on
to
my
Boston to
Amazon
pick me up
store.
to bring us back to Los Angeles.
No, it's 20. It's 20. I love this coffee mug. It's on my Amazon store. If you want
We
it.
had spoken the night before. We had argued the night before. She was most definitely looking for she was looking for a fight, actively searching for a way
I'm going to talk about this
to
at
instigate
break. They're going to have to take
a
the morning
fight
recess sometime soon.
with me.
They've been going for an hour.
And I had
But I will talk
taken
about it.
2 of these opiates, these roxycodones, and I can tell you now. Some of you may be very, very well aware of this. Opiates.
So teach us about opiates, Johnny.
are
Sure.
Extreme downers.
The
So
defense hasn't objected yet. Just keep going.
if you have
You're not an export in narcotics.
enough opiates in you,
So he's talking about his experiences.
you
but
will
he's not.
essentially go on what's called the nod. You'll just drop into sleep.
Common with heroin use, but he
So,
should be talking about it in the
I've
first
heard,
person
I've heard the words
not
blackout used.
in
and,
the broader sense.
there's a grave difference between a blackout from
This is
from-
not responsive
from,
at all to the question.
Alcohol abuse, because that is a person who
But I appreciate the
has-
distinction he's
has-
making.
has
His attorney should ask a
ingested
question
enough
about
alcohol
that between a blackout
to
and
render
falling
them,
asleep because you've taken
they
opiates.
can still behave and they can still stand and talk and scream and yell and cry and do whatever they do.
But it is a fair
and never
distinction between
remember a thing.
opioid use and
And
alcohol
generally they're
use.
always embarrassed by it. a blackout is a very, very different animal to the opiate taking you into dreamland. So
The yum
when
yum
I arrived
night
on
nights
the
or whatever he
plane,
called them. Because that's what he
uh,
called them in the notes with one of the nurses.
I was not feeling any pain, and I knew that she was
At some point, I'm going to rant about
ready
how our
for
society treats
some
pain,
kind of brawl, and
but I'm not there yet.
I sat on the plane.
Interesting,
drawing.
he
I
referred to it
was
as a brawl
drawing
this
in my
time.
Notebook. She would verbally heckle,
What question is he trying to
hassle,
answer? We don't
accuse,
know, Tally. We're lost.
poke, prod physically, poke and prod psychologically, emotionally. It just and finally, as
No,
was
I think this doesn't hurt them,
my,
so they're trying
the
not
one
to
thing I
be
learned,
unlikable to the
if
jury.
you're gonna hide
That's my
someplace from
speculation.
somebody, go straight
This is
into
the plane trip
bathroom.
where he allegedly
So
kicked her in
I
the
walked
back
back into the back
or
of the
passed out and
plane.
started moaning loudly. This
I
is that
grabbed a
trip.
pillow, and I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and
He talks
lay
about hiding in
down
the
on
bathroom a lot.
floor and went to sleep. And that's where I remained for the rest of the
He
flight.
said that he no longer takes them now,
How
but
much,
this
if
is
any,
May
alcohol had you had before you
2014.
got on the
So
flight?
this is talking about that plane incident in May
I
2014 where he
honestly don't
says he
recall
hit
having
her.
any alcohol. I mean, maybe there
And his
was the
sound
sort of
tech
glass of
testified
champagne
that they had
when
drank
you
a little
got
together.
on the plane or something like that. The initial thing, people order glasses of wine. People also tend to have a few drinks before a plane takes off because some people don't like the turbulence and
Him
this and that.
talking
So
about what
it's
some
a little
people
bit of
do
a
is
liquid
irrelevant.
courage.
He needs to talk about him,
Um,
and he
but
keeps
I
almost
certainly,
dissociating to talk, well, some people do this and some people do that. No,
after
you. This testimony is
ingesting
about you.
2 of the roxycodones,
He needs to be talking about himself more in
alcohol
this
was
and
not
not some people
necessary.
get nervous about flying and drink.
So I
booze.
can tell you now that I
Though I appreciate
was
that he's
not
like, well, I was on
drinking,
pills.
to excess, certainly
I
not.
didn't
And
need
if
I didn't need
had,
alcohol. I was on pills.
probably been
Fair.
in the bathroom hugging porcelain as opposed to sleeping on a pillow.
Also fair. If he had drank too much, he would have been vomiting on
Who
the
else
plane.
was on that flight that you can recall?
I remember Jerry Judge.
This
was on
plane
the flight.
incident is
Savannah was
important.
on the flight.
Hopefully you
Ms.
remember
Heard.
that the sound tech's on the flight.
Keenan,
Yep, Keenan.
Wyatt, Stephen Duders.
I think Gina Duders was on that flight as well, but her testimony was stricken when she was removed. But I think Gina Duders was on that flight as
I
well.
believe that's it.
What do you recall happening after you arrived back in LA?
That's not me. Let's go see if we get audio from Court TV's feed. Oh, they'll be right back. Helpful Court TV. Let me find another feed because the audio completely cut out of this feed. I'm going to leave it on for subtitles while I try to find a feed with audio. Sorry, y'all. This is the fun of live streaming trials. Oh, the subtitles have cut. Oh, of course, because there's no audio. So they can't do anything about it either. Well, I can't lip read, but this
Let's
is...
go back to the
There we-
same home
thank
together
you.
after that flight.
Yay. This flight's
Uh,
critical testimony.
No, I don't believe. No, we didn't. I don't believe we did. I think she had decided if this is the time. Pretty sure.
Court TV takes a lot of breaks.
I believe
But this
she
is
had
from Sky
decided to
News. If
check
anybody
herself
wants
into the
this feed
Chateau
without
Marmont.
commentary, you're welcome to go do it without commentary. I do
If that-
commentary.
There's so many of these. It's hard to sort of keep them all straight.
Who would have paid for Ms. Heard to stay at the Chateau Marmont?
We've moved to the Chateau Marmont.
I would have paid for it.
That's what he talked about, Paula.
If she wanted to go to the Chateau Marmont, I wasn't going to let her pay for it, no matter the circumstances. I wasn't going to let her pay for it because I knew that might
He paid
get
for everything.
expensive for her. So generally, I would take care of things of that nature.
And why did Miss Heard tell you why she was staying at the Chateau Marmont?
Oh, we get to talk about hearsay exceptions.
No. Well, I mean, she was
Not why did she
She
pick
was
that
clearly
hotel? Why did she go there?
upset, and she was irate. And I can't say that it was a bad idea for her to stay at the Chateau Marmont.
Her
that time.
statements to
I don't know
him
why she went to the Chateau, since she
are
still
statements
had
of a party opponent, so he's
her
allowed to talk about that.
apartment on Orange, I believe,
So she still had an
and the
apartment
penthouse.
and a
Because
penthouse.
I could have gone to Sweetser,
He was on Sweetser.
but she went to the Chateau Marmont.
Mr. Depp, do you recall why you were flying from Boston to LA in May 2014?
Celine, same. I've never stepped foot in the Chateau Marmont. I've talked about it in
I
cases.
can't remember if it was a break from the film or if I had finished the film, and that was before we went.
He wasn't going to let her
before
do
I was
that.
supposed to
I
go
think he
to
wanted
the
the
island
separation too.
to detox from the.
We're going to
opiates.
get into those incidents in the Bahamas too.
I think
Is that
It's a good time for a morning break.
This is a good time for a break.
All right.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and have our morning recess.
we're gonna
Please
get
do not
into
do any outside
detoxing in the
research. Don't talk to
Bahamas.
anybody about the case, and we'll see you in 15 minutes.
There are some
okay?
incidents in the Bahamas, and then the manager from the property at the Bahamas who witnessed a lot of what went on there is on the witness list. So when he talks about the island, there are incidents there that are relevant to all of this. I don't know if her suit is chartreuse or if it's just the lighting in the courtroom, but it definitely has a yellow tint to it in the way that it's being shown here. I like the gray suit on him. I like this tie better than
And so
yesterday.
again, since you're still on the stand, do not discuss your testimony with anybody, including your attorneys, okay? All right.
I'm going to
We'll come
get
back
to
at
some
11:35,
questions.
all right?
I'm going to get to some questions. We've got about 15 minutes of break from the courtroom. I'm going to leave this feed on until it goes back up to the seal. Oh, she's not wearing a full cream suit. I thought it was a full cream suit with a skirt, but she's wearing pants today. And then just a look at the gallery. This seems a little more full than it was yesterday. I'm going to get to super chats and to some of your questions. We've got a lot to talk about in 15 minutes. So I like Johnny's hair today too. Everyone, welcome in. There's over 6,000 of you here. Go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to chat. We're on subscriber mode just to cut down on bots, really. And because the Law Nerds have a certain way that we do things here, and you all are welcome here. So let us get into it. I lost a question that I was going to answer, and I don't know where it just went. Oh, this CS. How is he not allowed to speak to his attorneys about his testimonies during the break? Because they can't feed him information. So you can't talk about your testimony. They can say, just take a deep breath. They can say, I will keep, just answer the questions I ask, but that's it. So they can't help him with the information. That all has to come out in live testimony, and it will come out in live testimony. Let's see. Question, why are they testifying in Virginia? This case is a Virginia case. That is where Johnny Depp sued Amber Heard. I have a case brief episode up on the channel and on my podcast, The Emily Show. If you want kind of a breakdown of the jurisdiction, why it was sued there, and the litigation that went on. I've talked about it a little each day, so I don't want to repeat it too much, but that is available on this channel and audio only on the podcast. But he sued in Virginia. This is where the case is being held. In opening statements, Heard's attorneys argued that this was a further kind of fuck you. They didn't say that at all, but a further fuck you to Amber Heard by dragging her across the country for trial. And this was further abuse of Depp. I think it's because of the anti-SLAPP laws, but that's all in that breakdown. And he said he's not the best witness, is he? It depends on how the jury's resonating with him. This is a civil case. There's a little bit of leeway for him to tell his story because he is the plaintiff here. I find some of his answers hard to follow, and there are these moments in his answers that are very needed. I'm sure his lawyers are just going to save those and point them out at closing, but you need the jury to get those nuggets, and they get a little lost in the way he talks. But he also had these very wandering text messages, and some of them kind of vulgar text messages. And this kind of explains, this is how he talks. There's a lot of exposition. It starts at the beginning of the story. He doesn't just answer the question asked, but for some jurors, they might be like, well, I can see why she was frustrated and cut him off all the time, because it's like, get to the, can you tell us the thing? So it's going to depend on how the jury sees it. If jurors see it as endearing, and they might see her style as domineering over him by this like jackhammer style of talking that we've heard reference to from their therapist, but it just depends on how the jurors are relating to him in the room. I saw this in my comments across social yesterday. Some people were like, I can't even listen. It's so frustrating. Get to the point. I don't want to have a conversation with him. And some people were like, I am entranced. I am transfixed. Talk to me, Johnny, forever. I just want to hear what you have to say. And so there is kind of a split on that across just the comments I've seen on my socials in having these conversations. So it really depends on what the jury thinks. Arctic Ginger said, is she trying to be like Lauren Bacall to off-balance him, or to better times, or because she relates to him? I think this is my thoughts on this. This is pure speculation. After yesterday, where he talked about their nicknames for each other and her being the Lauren Bacall to his Humphrey Bogart, which is very old-timey Hollywood stuff that might not resonate with a younger jury because they're like, whatever, these actors and their obsession with old movies, we don't care. But she might be trying to also conjure that imagery for the jury of the woman that was the mystical, kind of magical, beautiful creature. She might be trying to pull the jury back into seeing her the way Depp saw her. A lot of us are sitting here looking at her face over the camera going, she looks cold, she looks angry, and she looks standoffish. She wants the jury to see her the way Johnny Depp first saw her. She wants the jury to see her as sweet and charismatic, or caring and vulnerable. And I don't know if this is going to play to that or not. You guys will have to let me know what you think, because again, that's what the jury's going to be deciding. They have nothing else to look at in this courtroom, not even their phones. So when Johnny starts to wander, they are going to be watching her reaction. They're going to be watching the lawyer's reactions. Gabrielle said it's very complicated dynamics. He was grown and abused, and the counselor didn't see the violence. The marital counselor reported what she was told by the two parties, but when they answer in testimony that they didn't see it, it means they didn't physically see it. And we also can see from Johnny Depp that when he gets to parts of his testimony that are hard, he skips over them. When he was talking about the tattoo, he said, you know, I got a tattoo and it was right before everything went wrong. And it was like, get that sentence out and move on. And it's going to get harder for his attorneys to pin him down. They have to get to these incidents that Heard is going to bring up. They have to talk about the plane flight. They have to talk about Australia and his finger getting cut off. They have to talk about these hard incidents that he does not want to talk about, but it's also why he sued and why he's here. He has to address it. And if he keeps trying to skip over them, it's not going to give the impact. Tinking a glass of champagne with your friend is not the heart of this defamation case. The fight that came later is. And that's the stuff he's skipping over because it is painful stuff to talk about. But he can't keep scooting past it. That is the point of his testimony. That is the power of his testimony. And that is what the jury has to understand if he wants to win this defamation suit. Christy H. said he stutters more when he talks about any kind of abuse. Hopefully the jury notices it too. And if the jury doesn't notice it, that the experts bring it up when they testify later. What are your thoughts on the marriage counselor saying that there was damaging behaviors on both sides? Sarah VW, I think there were damaging behaviors on both sides. I don't think that this was a one-sided toxic relationship. Does that mean that Amber Heard was a victim of domestic violence? not necessarily, but they both had unhealthy dynamics. And we've seen some of that in the audio. But I think Johnny Depp did try to de-escalate. And the therapist said he tried to de-escalate. She tried to escalate. She wanted to stand her ground and fight. And she would rather hit him than have him walk out. So I think there are some damaging behaviors, but a lot of Johnny Depp's damaging behaviors seem to be damaging to himself. And hopefully his attorneys will circle that back round. She needs to be ousted from Hollywood. Why is that different for her? She's actually admitted to hitting JD, not the other way around. Jay Phillips, I don't know. I know people have tried. There are standards and double standards when it comes to how men are treated in court for things like domestic violence than how women are treated. That is something as a society that we can all start to recognize, that relational violence can go both ways. Relational violence between any partner, it doesn't just look one way or the other. It doesn't look, it's not just straight couples that have relational violence. And our society is very, very set up, and some of our laws are set up to look at relational violence as a man hitting a woman. And that's just not the case. These dynamics play out across all types of relationships, not just these particular types of heterosexual romantic relationships. So I think there is still a long way to go with that, but it's something that is talked about much more frequently and that people are more aware of, including the medical professionals, not, separating people when they come into the hospital, not assuming that the person that came in was a friend and is not actually the relational partner, et cetera, et cetera. So Janu Zeal said, back again. Glad to have you. I told my girlfriend about you and it turns out she already follows you. Yay. So here's another super chat on her behalf. Well, thank you to your girlfriend. KPD says she's sounding very narcissistic. She also looks like a non-empathetic stone. She does look stone-faced. I don't think there's much she can do here. If she looks too empathetic, I think it will be read into. If she looks too cold, obviously it's going to be read into. She's kind of in a no-win. She has to just sit there and listen. Everything she does is going to be picked apart. Everything he does is going to be picked apart. So it is a hard thing, but she doesn't seem to have much emotion as these stories are being shared, as his experiences are being shared. You can tell when she gets annoyed, but that's the only emotion I'm really seeing. It'll be interested to see what channels like Observe do with this down the road. Karen said, not liking the way he is using as one does if a person says, or if you. I think he should stick with I statements, more relatable. I agree with you. I think he's like, people get drunk before a flight because they're nervous of flying. That is not your testimony. That's not testimony. You're not qualified to give that testimony, but this is the way he speaks. No one's jumping in on it. His attorneys aren't going to jump over him. And the defense is kind of in a losing situation if they jump over it. I wonder how the jury responded when he said, let him object to another one. I wonder if there was a smirk or a smile from any of them, because the defense will read off of that. The defense doesn't give a shit if Johnny Depp quips back at them. But if the jury is really liking him, they need to pick their battles. They need to pick their battles very specifically to evidence that should not come in. If it's going to come in anyway, objecting to the form of the question or to the narrative doesn't really win them anything except potentially dislike with the jury. He does come across as very genuine. I think so too, Steph. Andrew Young said some of Depp's witnesses were asked about DV and they didn't condemn it. Is that something they were coached to do? If so, why? I didn't like it. I don't know what you're referring to specifically. Most of the witnesses should be coached to say, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? What did you notice? So they shouldn't be coached to be like, no, DV is okay. Because in this entire trial, DV not being okay is kind of the theme of this trial. So I'm not exactly sure which witness testimony you're talking about in that. Heather said his testimony is about to eat up the remaining 6 weeks of trial time if his attorney doesn't rein him in. We're at least going to get through the end of the week on him. There's no way. And there's no court Friday. So we're going to be here today and tomorrow with Depp's testimony for sure. Can his attorneys give him guidance how to answer during breaks? No. I thought the judge said he cannot speak to his attorney when they broke last. He can speak to them, but not about his testimony. So Of course, they can speak to him about scheduling lunches at this time, but they can't speak about his testimony. So they can't talk about his answers and, oh, don't you remember, coming up, we're going to be talking about May this day or April this year. They can't talk about the substance of his testimony. They can say, keep going. You're doing a good job. Take a deep breath, water if you need it, stuff like that. Did Amber testify? No. Will she testify? Yes. Are we there yet? No. We got a ways to go. We probably won't see. Now, this is probably. Johnny Depp's team can call Amber Heard. I don't know if they will. But we probably won't see her testify until the plaintiff rests their case and we get into her case. So we got some time before that's going to happen. Question: when it comes to trauma victims, how does a lawyer know when to push and when to let them be evasive? It depends on the lawyer. But here, Johnny Depp is the one suing. He doesn't have room to be evasive. He chose to bring this suit. They would have had long conversations about what this looks like when he gets on the stand. They have to push him a bit and they have to get his story out. This is his case to prove, and he has to prove it. So they have to push. Also, not all lawyers are trauma informed, and that can be difficult for lawyers as well. Here's a metaphor for why he stayed. Water finds its own level. It's a great metaphor, which is why I highlighted it. Tracy Reed said, he said he stayed because of the influence of his father. He said how his father was heroic and just put up with it. That was given to him by his mother, or put up with what was given to him by his mother. And I think he circled it finally back around. But these are points that get lost in the storytelling a bit. And his team is going to have to do a really good job of pointing these moments out in closing arguments, because the jury is going to lose some of these points over the coming weeks. But the experts can hit on these too when they testify. Depp is letting him go because they want the same for Amber Heard. So asking why the defense is not objecting. It's not necessarily a give and take with this, but it might be. It might be we're giving a little leeway, so you give a little leeway. We'll see what happens. It might be to not piss off the jury. It might be because they're like, it's coming in anyway, so why fight on this? FYI, Lauren Bacall wore a yellow suit when she married Bogart. We're going to have to look at pictures and see if it had brown pants too. Good to see you again, Renelle Smith. Jessica said, your commentary is awesome. Thank you. And again, if you guys want to watch without commentary, it is on almost every news feed you can find here on the YouTubes. I bring my experience as a trial attorney, turned legal analyst commentator to this when I look at what the jury might think and how we evaluate witnesses, because this is what I did. I was a prosecutor. Bringing witnesses and proving my case was the bread and butter of the work that I did as a trial attorney for over 10 years. So that's the perspective I bring to all of this. And then sometimes just a little humor when the answers wander so long I can't keep up with where we got. Question: is the strategy behind his testifying early and introducing audio so subsequent experts can comment on it? Kimmy, I think that's a very reasonable point, because he's laying the foundation for what the experts can cover later. So yes, this is what the jury wants to see. They want to see him testify. They want to see Amber Heard testify. And so everything should build from here, and other witnesses should build in the credibility for how he talks about each of these incidents. So he's going to talk about it, and then it's witnesses proving what he said is true. That is how the plaintiff is going to want to build their case. And they're going to want to try to juxtapose that if Amber doesn't have as many people who witnessed the incidents go down the way she says they went down. Henhouse Bathco said, it's sad how many men are actually the victim of DV and never speak out. It's huge that he's being honest about it all. Agreed. And I hope the jury sees, the jury will decide if he's being honest about it, but it comes off very credible to me. I just hope it doesn't get lost in the way that he delivers that. Her neutral stance almost comes off as smug, but she did give a small eye roll when he was talking about the taping. And the jury will clock a lot of that because they have nothing else to look at. LK said, having ADHD, he could be getting off track because he forgot where he was going and is trying to remember. Happens to me all the time. Happens to me too. And in front of a jury, it's very embarrassing to say, we jumped track on this train and I'm not sure what the question was. It's very, very embarrassing to have to do. I have to do it all the time. I just tell you guys because, no shame in my ADHD game. Reliving trauma is extremely hard, and I can see it all over his face. I know what explaining why you stay feels like. It is impossible without self-harm, self-humiliation. He is protecting her still. Whimsical. It does seem that he's being a bit protective. He doesn't come across the way that they've described him. In opening statements, they described him as an obsessed ex-husband, hell-bent on revenge. Those were his words. Obsessed ex-husband, hell-bent on revenge. Does that feel true to what you are seeing in his testimony? Just put a yes or no in the chat. We're just going to informally do a poll. Does that feel true to what you're seeing? Does he come across as an obsessed ex-husband hell-bent on revenge? Because that's not the vibe I'm getting. I still see him as minimizing, downplaying, and placating. And that might change, but that's what I'm seeing from him. And they're going to need an expert to explain that. But he does not come across as a madman who is hell-bent on hurting her. He comes across as someone who doesn't
For the jury?
want to talk about it and is skipping over those parts. So the jury's back in. Everybody's seated. The break is done. Oh, this court is running like fucking clockwork. This judge has been like, I said we're back from break at 10:35 or 11:35. It is 11:36. The jury is walking in the door. They have been very precise on time. I'm going to get to a few more questions if we can. KK said, for all we have heard, his whole case sounds and feels very conclusive so far. Yes. If anything, I hope he can heal and have a career again after this. I hope everyone heals after this. Mooney Magoo, WAP, We Are Professionals. We're making a shirt. It's happening. We're making a We Are Professionals shirt. Dawn said, I understand why he answers that way because he feels like he needs to explain or give background. I do that too because of past trauma. And that's what his experts are going to have to remind the jury of later. Question, how does this make his text make more sense? It's the way he speaks. His texts were wandering and storytelling, and they seemed or could be characterized as someone who is altered. This is him. So it gives context to those texts aren't because he's altered. Those texts are because this is the way he talks. This is him. This is what it is.
Who's
It is
Dr.
wandering.
Kipper?
Dr. Kipper is a he's been
my doctor.
ever since I'd met him in, I believe it was that May of 2014, around there in Boston.
Amy Sharp, this is a great point.
And why were you connected with Dr. Kipper?
And it's something that his marital therapist said too.
My
is he
sister
struggled
Christy
to explain his feelings, and he struggled to talk.
knew, of course, that
I will try to get to this on a break.
had been addicted to the opiates, and she was concerned, and she brought me his book.
Trish, I don't think so. I think
And,
this is the way he talks.
Talked to me heart to
I don't
heart,
think he's altered now. I think this is the way he
and
explains himself
asked
and the
me
way
if
he
I would
talks.
be willing to
I think this is
go
how
through
he is.
the detox.
And
And what was your answer?
Yes,
most of the
of
witnesses,
course.
this is talking about detoxing. Most of
And
the
you
witnesses said
mentioned,
that when he
Debbie
was
Lloyd. Can you please explain
under
to
the
jury who
influence,
she is?
that he was
Oh,
the same,
De-
that he's
Debbie,
always kind of like this.
Debbie Lloyd is
So, all the
is
witnesses
a
talked about that.
nurse,
You know, he might be a little
who
more swaggery,
my
but this
doctor,
is
Dr.
how he
Kipper,
is.
had assigned to my case.
Yes, Anna, I will
to-
try to keep the questions on the screen for longer. I
be
was trying not to
the,
cover the closed captions too
to
much.
oversee the detox and deliver the meds, the medications to me that would help with my with the effects of withdrawal that one goes through. To essentially try and knock you out so that you don't go through the nastiness of the affair.
Did Miss Lloyd stay on?
I think by
after
affair,
the
he meant
detox process
detoxing.
as your nurse.
Yes, she did.
And when you were under Dr. Kipper's care, how often did you see Miss Lloyd?
On location every day. Yes, on location every day.
Stop there. Just stop there. That's good. That you answered the question. Stop.
Even when after
Stacy is saying this is in his other
a
interviews
year or two,
how he is.
I was still seeing her at least on a bi-weekly basis, 2 to 3 times a week.
When did you start the detox process that you mentioned?
I know that I believe it was in August, July or August.
This is Johnny
Of,
Depp's female
2000.
attorney, Camilla Vasquez, that's asking the questions. We have not
15,
gotten into
14,
cross-examination
I
yet.
Cannot remember the year.
She can refresh his
14, I guess.
recollection here as to the date.
Where
If they
where
need
did
to.
you do this detox process?
They might not need to. It might not matter.
We did the detox process happened on. I have a place in the Bahamas.
This is what's needed.
I'm never comfortable saying this, but it's an island. It's a very strange thing to say, but
I have an
I thought
island in the
that would be
Bahamas.
the best place, the most private place where there were no worries of paparazzi or any of that.
He went to
So
where
it
he
was-
felt
it was
safe.
a place where I could literally be, the only place where I can have actual anonymity. So I thought that would be the best place to do it.
That makes me sad.
Who came with you down
Does that
to
make
the
y'all
island
sad?
for
That
the
makes me kind of
detox?
sad.
Nurse Debbie Lloyd traveled with me on the plane. Ms. Heard. And I believe that was it on the plane to go to the island for the detox. I was not bringing security. I was not bringing assistance. In fact, initially, my sister Christy was going to go there to help Ms. Lloyd and the doctor through the detox, which made perfect sense since that the whole thing had been born out of her desire for me to get clean. So initially it was supposed to be Christy coming in place of Ms. Heard.
So his sister was supposed to
There
go and not
there was a
Amber.
great part of me that was very uncomfortable with Ms. Heard coming along for that detox because as things could fluctuate very rapidly in our relationship, I was wary that those things would come up during what needed to be a very straight detoxification of these substances. And I was well aware that it was not going to be pleasant. I was well aware that I was going to go through quite a bit of physical changes, physical. Yes, I was afraid that it would be too much for her, and I also felt that she might be too much for me at the time.
So then why did Ms. Heard come down to the island with you during the detox process?
She insisted.
They need to bring that up in closing.
She switched places with Christy.
Could you please describe for the jury, Mr. Depp, what it feels like to go through a detox from opioids?
I don't know if this is really relevant, but it's
I would
very
say
interesting
the best way to describe
that he
it is
described not feeling safe with her there while he was detoxing.
it feels like it feels like the inside of you.
This is going to be
the very
descriptive, I'm sure.
inside of you is trying to escape the body. So it's it becomes obviously very physical, and so therefore you'll go into a withdrawal would mean that you would go into
I see all of you in the chat talking about your sobriety.
you'd
Good
have
for you
immense
guys.
cramps in your stomach, your muscles would seize, my body would shake. The pain is like nothing I've ever experienced before. Part of it was, so the best way to explain it, for example, there was a situation that when we were on the island and I was going through the detox, and it was hitting pretty hard at that point.
It's interesting.
Ms.
He's
Heard
much more comfortable
had made a
talking
deal
about
with,
the horrificness of his detox
Nurse
than his relationship
Debbie
with her.
and Dr. Kipper,
That's
to
that's
stay
interesting. He looks
at
to the
their end
jury
of the
talking about
island,
his
and
detox.
that she would administer the
He
drugs
seems to have a smoother flow
to me,
while talking about the detox.
administer the medications that I needed to
He's
not go into,
much more uncomfortable talking about his relationship.
for lack of a
than
better word,
this.
these
That's so interesting
intense,
to me.
Sharp, painful heebie-jeebies. And there was a moment when I could feel my body starting to tense, and I could feel the withdrawals coming on, and they come on quick, and they're not discreet. They go straight.
She's watching
for
the jury.
the jugular.
No shade, as she should be.
Like I said, when your receptors are in full bloom and begging for the substance, the drug, the opiates that my body had become used to, these receptors that were being fed by. There was a moment when it was coming on very fast, and I was sitting on the couch in the little house that we all saw.
I agree,
on the
Carmen. She
island.
does look pretty broken as well.
Ms. Heard was at she was in the sort of kitchen area, and she was chopping vegetables, I remember. And I think it was around 2:30 in the afternoon, and the effects of the withdrawals were really coming on. And I said to Ms. Heard,
I feel for him too.
I'm going to need the meds now.
This is one of the incidents
she
that
said,
sparks a bigger incident. That's why
She
we're
looked
talking
at the
about
clock, and
this.
she said, "It's not time." And I said, "No, you don't understand. This is not about clocks and watches and things. I'm going into the ship," and it was visible.
I'm going into the shit.
And
Closed captioning. He said shit, not ship.
I hate saying this, and I hate to have
He's
to
still
admit this,
protecting her. It's very interesting.
but that was, I believe that was about the lowest point in my life. That was the lowest I'd ever felt
He needs to describe this
as
incident more.
as a human being,
He doesn't want to, but he has to.
because I had to say, please, please, may I have the meds, because it's really kicking in. And she was adamant.
This
"No,
has been
it's not
described.
time. It's not time." So
in detail.
in explaining
He
how
needs to
these
explain it in more detail.
withdrawals start to take over your body, when I was begging at that point for the meds, I found
He needs
that
to
I had
describe that more.
sort of rolled off the couch and I was sitting on the floor crying. And tears streaming down my face, begging another human being to please give me the meds that will take this away. And she would not. She was adamant that, nope, it's not time, 4 o'clock. So the only thing that one can do in that situation is you have to trick the body. You have to manipulate your body out away from those. Well, you have to trick the body to get away from the receptors. So
I
the
hope
only
his
thing that
attorney
one can
follows
do is
up
you go
with him
straight to
having to beg for
the shower,
medication and what happened after
and,
that. He
you
doesn't want
put
to
it
talk
on
about it,
scalding
but he has
water,
to.
and you stand underneath the scalding shower, and essentially you're burning the top. Your skin is burning from the heat of the water, and what that would do is it would trick the nerves away from the receptors, because they had an immediate problem that needed to be dealt with, the nerves. So what it does is the scalding shower would reverse those nerve endings, and they would go up to the top of the skin, because there was a problem there. So that's how I was able to
I'm glad he
bypass
switched to I. That's how I handled it.
those withdrawal symptoms at times. It doesn't fully take them away, but what it does is it tricks your body into thinking that there's something going horribly wrong on top. So it keeps them away from the receptors. After that, I had a conversation with Nurse Debbie and with Dr. Kipper, and I said, I don't believe, I told them that she had denied me the meds when I was in need, and then I told them that I don't think that this is going to work here anymore. I think we have to leave the island, and I need to be, she can't be with me while I'm going through the rest of this detoxification. So I told them we should leave the island. I asked them if they understood what I was doing, and they did. So we went back to Los Angeles, and then I asked Miss Heard if she would please allow me
The
5
detox,
days, 7
whatever
days,
the
whatever
detox
it
was,
took
is
to
what
get out,
she
to
was
get
withholding.
finished with the rest of this horrific detox and the pain.
Did Miss Heard give you that time?
Good job.
She did, reluctantly, yes. I was immediately accused of
She kept him on track
throwing her out.
very well there.
I was accused of abandoning her.
He switched out his coffee for water at the break.
I was accused of
The smirk's not going to
not
help.
appreciating all that she had done to get me to this point where I was, which was kind of an interesting argument for me. I begged her, please, can I get a place at the Beverly Hills Hotel? I'll get you and your friends a bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel where you can all stay together and have a grand old flag. You can have fun. You can do whatever you want.
Can you please
You
go
don't
the
have to
fuck
sit
away so I
around,
can
Mr.
detox, is what I'm hearing
Shaky.
from him.
And she wasn't happy about it. but it was very necessary. So she did eventually
How much is a bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel? I don't
leave
know these
for
things.
about five days or so, and I sat in after a few days, I sat in just a metal chair with one song on a loop that I could focus on the lyrics and the power of the song to help me get through it. And even once the effects started to go away, that is the pain.
A bungalow
was
at the
still
Beverly
in
Hills
this-
Hotel's $8,500.
Something strange that happens. You feel electricity in your body. You feel this electric,
Yikes.
very
So weak.
foreign, and you're just sitting there like going through it. And I didn't understand what the electricity was until probably, and this lasted for, the electricity, that feeling lasted for a month, 2 months. And I finally realized at a certain point what that electricity was. And
I want to know what the song was
I was
too.
feeling that's what it was. I was actually feeling without the aid of
He
the
wasn't
drug,
numb.
without the aid of any drugs. I mean, I'd had refused with Dr. Kipper and Nurse Debbie and Amber at the table before she left for the hotel with her friends.
I see y'all
had
sharing about Law and Crime
refused
doing the
to
side by side. Law and Crime has struck
continue
my channel to
taking,
take down my streams in the
the
past improperly.
phenobarbital,
So I will
and
not
the
be sharing their stream.
lithium.
Because,
uh,
well, there's beef there.
because to me it was just another drug in the way. It seemed like it was just another hurdle to get over. And I would rather just get it out of my system now.
So that's why I don't use that one.
and move forward. Maybe I wouldn't have had
But I appreciate the help,
electricity.
chat.
Maybe I wouldn't have felt as quickly, but
They took
didn't-
down
I
my
didn't
stream
want to take
midstream.
phenobarbital and lithium and Seroquel and Neurontin and all these other things. And the worst of the two, I believed, were the phenobarbital and the lithium. So I went through that.
Oh, but if we're going to lose the audio feed, we're going to go somewhere. The feed froze. Oh, let's see. And Court TV is still on. We'll be right back. Hold on. Let me just grab another feed real quick because this feed clearly froze in a very strange way. But if the cameras froze, then the cameras froze everywhere. So let me try to find another feed real quick. Let's see if the CBS feed is up. Yep. All right, let's switch to that one real quick. Sorry, y'all. I don't know why Long Cry or Court TV is still on a break, but they are.
Anything to really numb it.
I'm just going to turn
So
this
I
down
could-
while it's
I was
frozen. Really? Oh, I did that. That's me.
Nothing to
Sorry, y'all.
cover or to hide or to suppress the feelings.
We're professionals here.
It was just me and that electricity that I got to know as what actually feeling was like in many years.
There's one court feed coming out
Mr. Depp,
of the
how
courtroom,
long were you with Miss Heard before
and
the two of
everyone
you
can
got
restream
married?
it. So sometimes when it freezes, it just freezes everywhere.
Um, 4 years? 4 years maybe, was it?
How long were you
I
together?
don't 2012 or 13 to 2000. We were married in February 3rd, I believe, 2016.
And then
And
everything broke loose in
where was that
2017.
wedding?
Excuse me.
He gets very uncomfortable
That-
talking about the relationship.
Um,
I wonder if the
since-
jury will see it.
Since my mother.
Oh, Paul, yes,
my
we're
mom,
law nerds
Betty
here.
Sue,
Mostly not lawyers.
who
You are welcome here.
by
Always.
this time in her life
We're legally
um,
curious here.
had mellowed quite a bit, and she'd been through a number of illnesses.
Wait, she asked where they got married, and he's talking about his
since-
mom.
Since my mom was
This would get frustrating for me,
ill, and one doctor had told
but it's
me
by
that
way of
she
explaining where they got married
had no more than 3 months.
because of his mom.
I went to Ms. Heard, and we knew we were going to do something on the island, but I decided, or asked her, and we both agreed that her parents would come to my mom's house so that my mom could witness the wedding and be there and all that.
The fact that he still wanted
So
his
we held it at my mom's house for that reason. So there was my children were there.
wedding around his mother says a lot.
Ms. Heard's family and friends, and so that was, yes, February 3rd, 2016.
And is that the ceremony that you mentioned or the
They-
celebration on the
Was
island?
it 15? I don't know. Sorry,
They
I'm sorry. What was your
are
question?
now putting Miss
I
Heard.
said, is the date that you just mentioned, is that the actual
In the
ceremony
closed
or is
caption
that the
as
date
Missouri.
that you celebrated on the island?
No, the actual ceremony, the actual wedding that goes down on paper
The legal one.
was February 3rd at my mom's, at Betty Sue's house, and then we all immediately left for the island for the dream wedding, I guess.
Whose idea was it to get married at that time?
You guys don't forget to do the likey, subscribey things.
Well, I had proposed to Ms. Heard a couple of years before, I believe, and so we talked occasionally about when would be the right time in terms of between schedules and how could we make this so that we could actually have a wedding and a honeymoon and then go on to do.
It's interesting. Some of the
Um,
testimony said she
At
rushed the
first, my
wedding,
sister Christy was
but he's
was,
also talking about his
handling
mom
all the-
being ill and wanting to get married there
all
because
the-
his mom was ill.
all of the
So it kind of
details and
Contradicts
things,
the Heard rushed the wedding a bit for me.
that for example, that Miss Heard wanted for the
This
wedding.
froze
and
everywhere else. Well, I did a good job finding the unfrozen
and
feed. Professionals
Raquel had
here.
decided that they were going to design or what the wedding was going to be like. At a certain point, Miss Heard
Yeah,
was
it's
getting
frozen
very,
elsewhere. Go
very,
share the stream.
she started to get very upset with Christy, my sister. And
Goldemir, we'll be
accused
talking about the agreements at some
me
point because
and
that all came down in
Christy
Australia.
of
We'll get there.
trying to slow the process.
Were you trying to slow the process?
Good coming in with the question. Trying to keep him on track. She's
No,
doing a good job of
I-
trying to keep it focused
I
without
wasn't
being pushy.
trying to slow the process, but what I couldn't understand was
Or to direct that Heard was rushing the process.
when
Sorry,
Miss
my
Heard
headphones are
suddenly, Miss Heard
fighting with
and
my hair.
her friend Raquel Pennington had decided to take all that away from my sister,
Oh,
and then they
it's an interesting way to characterize that.
jumped in and made
Objection,
sure
Your
that
Honor. Testimony about what Ms. Pennington had decided is hearsay.
We
That's-
can move on from
All
there.
right. I'll
Fa-
just take
that's-
objection. Next question.
Fair. He could talk about what they did.
Directing
Oh, no,
you
don't
to
do that,
the,
Johnny.
celebration on the island.
He said good one to the
Who was
attorney.
invited to that celebration?
Don't bait the lawyer.
Close friends.
It will
family,
come off as
obviously. My
snarky and
father,
smug to the jury.
My dad came.
He could talk about
My
the fact that they took
son was there.
the wedding out of his sister's hands.
He was my best man.
You can see that he loved that. But you could talk
my
about what he
daughter,
witnessed. He can't talk about what they decided or
Lily
what they
Rose
thought.
did not
That's the problem
come to the
here.
wedding.
But to wink at the lawyer and be
She
like,
and
good one, is
Ms. Heard were
is-
not on particularly great terms.
snarky.
For several reasons. There were a number of Ms. Heard's friends and her family. So I'd say all in all, maybe there were, seems like there could have been no more than 20 people, 25 people, maybe.
Was there any alcohol served at the wedding?
Yes, there was alcohol served at the wedding. There was champagne. There was all the accoutrements. And then, yes,
And was anyone ingesting any illegal drugs at the wedding?
yes.
And who was doing that?
Well, there was a
Who did you see?
schedule that was
Who did you
written
see?
out.
No, who did you see
and
taking
printed
drugs?
out and sent out, so that everyone would know exactly the time that everything would happen. And on that sheet,
Were drugs on the schedule?
It would.
MDMA,
It was
11 a.m.
like some kind of rehearsal type thing. There was also
Yeah, his bickering with the defense attorney in these little ways does not bode well
there
for
was a-
Cross
there
at
was a
all. But it'll be
great
interesting
dilemma
for us. It
in
might
who
not go
was
well for
going
him.
to
Take drugs
be
when.
Who? That's where the argument between Ms. Pennington and Io Tillett Wright.
He can-
Depp, who did you
Thank
observe
you.
taking drugs at the wedding?
She needed to bring him back to that.
A number of people were taking MDMA. As I said, the list, there was after the wedding, there was a
The schedule
it
matters
was
to
like
him.
dinner, dancing, and drugs on the schedule.
Dinner, dancing, drugs on the
that,
schedule. Did I hear that right? Or is my
Came
brain?
from Ms. Heard and
inserting
Ms.
things.
Pennington.
The autocorrect is not getting Miss Heard's name right.
So
We've now gone to Missouri.
Amber, Raquel, a couple of friends of mine, Savannah, her assistant.
That's what I heard too. Okay. I heard right. It just blew my mind a little
Tillett
bit,
Wright.
but I barely drank at my wedding. He's like, it was just everybody.
All of her
It was just everybody. Everybody did drugs. It's fine.
all
Can
of
we
her
move on?
gang were all
Squad was high. Can we move on?
partaking in the MDMA.
What if any what if any drugs did you take that day?
Again, to be honest with you,
Please be honest.
I
You're
was-
under
I
oath.
was- I mean, I don't know how much MDMA they had, but for me, that was for me to have taken MDMA would have been a waste of the drug. If you understand what I mean, it would have been
No.
essentially taking someone else's high, because it wouldn't have an effect on me.
So
Did-
how many drugs did you actually take that day?
Can you just answer? Did you take drugs at the wedding?
The day of our wedding,
Yes.
I
Sorry.
smoked marijuana. And I don't remember drinking. I don't remember if that I was drinking then. This was right. This was right before she was going to London to do, I believe, London Fields, and I was going off to
Not the
Australia.
Nope, non-responsive.
To do Pirates 5.
Did you take drugs at your wedding? Yes or no? I smoked weed. Great, move on. Ask him another question.
I'm
The wandering is getting a bit
pretty positive at that point. I
difficult.
wasn't partaking of alcohol. My drug of choice is or was, and it is marijuana.
The chat's going to agree with you, Johnny.
That's all
No one's judging you here.
that was fine for me.
When
So,
you and
so
Mr.
dipping
Yes.
into
Nope. Let your attorney go.
little
Nope.
tiny
Nope.
baggie of,
Nope. 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 Nope.
you know, licking your finger.
No,
and
no, no, no.
dipping into a little tiny communal bag of MDMA.
Ew.
It wasn't gonna. It was pointless.
It's the communal for me, not the MDMA. It's
When you and Miss Heard got married, did you have a prenuptial agreement in place?
there we go.
No, we did not. No.
And why not?
MDMA is ecstasy for the chat. There we need to know this.
There always seemed to be some reason or another why she
didn't sign it?
wouldn't discuss it, or if we did discuss it, it became an issue that would turn into it would springboard into unpleasantness and then arguments.
Oh, they would fight over the prenup. That's fair.
And then it was also too late. At a certain point, it was just too late. So then the idea of a
That's true.
post-nup agreement was brought up.
It has to be signed within a certain period of time
and
before
that
the
was in
wedding.
Australia.
So if you
That was-
stall, it can be invalidated
that was
because of the
beginning
stall.
The Australian
This is relevant.
Well, let's
Fight.
talk.
The
let's
Australia
talk about
kerfuffle.
Australia then.
Let's talk about
But First
Australia.
of all, why were you in Australia?
I was working on Pirates of the Caribbean 5.
And
Which one's
who from
5?
your team was with you in Australia?
Jerry Judge, Malcolm Connolly, Nathan Holmes,
Australia is going to be a
Gooders.
mess, y'all.
Keenan
Just-
Wyatt.
Just know this is going to be a mess. A postnuptial is like a prenup that gets signed after the wedding.
I believe that was it. Oh, and yeah, no, that's it.
Was Miss Lloyd in Australia with you as well?
Oh, yes, sorry, yes. Miss Lloyd traveled to Australia with us.
And did Dr. Kipper come down to Australia at any point?
Yeah, Dr. Kipper came down a bit later.
Australia is a large fight that they had where his finger
Mr.
was
Wyatt
part-
testified
was severed.
yesterday that he observed you have a meeting with Sean Bailey in Australia. Do you remember that?
it's where one of their big first fights kind of happens.
Yes.
It's relevant
Could
for
you
this.
please tell the jury
trial.
who Sean Bailey is?
Sean Bailey, at that time, I believe he was the number 3.
Yes,
number
after the
3
wedding.
man at Disney, in terms of hierarchy. He was upper echelon Disney, so he was under Bob Iger, and initially under Dick Cook, who was removed from Disney for some reason. So
Keep moving. Keep it
yes,
moving.
he was number 3 man at Disney.
And why were you having a discussion?
Yes, this
with
is also
Mr.
the
Bailey?
incident with the dogs.
The
So
discussions
it's not going to be
that
super
I,
relevant here at
was
this
having with
point.
Mr. Bailey with Sean Bailey were they had to do with, well, as I think we've established, I have always, from the beginning of that series of films, I had always rewritten my character's words and jokes, if you will, and situational comedy and things that I would add. And Mr. Bailey was very complimentary about some of the things that I'd done. He'd come over to me laughing after a
Objection
take.
calls for hearsay.
No, it's
No,
not
this is
offered for the
just
truth.
Discussing generally what they were talking
Yes, it's not
You can
offered for the
specific, I'll sustain
truth.
that if you want to continue, that's fine.
Don't quip.
about. Mr. Depp, was Ms.
Stop
Heard in
staring down the
Australia with you?
attorney. He's just doing his job.
She came a little later, yes.
Do you recall when she came down?
I don't recall. Well, no, I do recall. It was March. It was March.
And what happened when Ms. Heard came to visit you in Australia?
Ms. Heard was upset because, as I stated earlier, as it was too late for a prenup agreement, there
That's
was
legally correct.
discussion of post-nup
There is timing,
agreement.
and you have to sign it
And
well
I had
before the wedding, or it can
called
be invalid because it
my
can be seen as
lawyer at
duress.
the time
So there needs to be a
and
kind of
asked him
cooling off
if-
period
if
with
he
prenups,
could have one of his
for lack of a better
one of his
phrase.
lawyers sit down with Ms. Heard and give her a basic rundown of what a postnuptial agreement meant, and I was told that they showed her.
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, this is what something he asked an attorney. It's not
Yeah.
a statement of fact that's being offered for its truth.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll sustain the objection.
It's not hearsay because it's
What
not
did Ms.
offered for the
Heard tell
truth.
you she was upset about when she arrived in
And
Australia?
that's a fair way to do it too. She told him, and that's a statement of a party opponent.
Ms. Heard told me that
And you're going to see them objecting more because this gets
the
very
attorney that
critical
she
in
met
this
with
case.
was rude and dismissive, and
She's like, what?
all she was being shown was an example
She looks
of
annoyed.
a postnuptial agreement. Ms. Heard then stated to me that she was very upset. She stated to me that
Thank you, Miriam, for the super chat.
that what she
I don't
had
think
said
so,
was,
but they can watch streaming like the rest of us have.
she said to the lawyer, the woman, that this Johnny can't. He must not. He doesn't know about this. He's never seen. He doesn't know that this is what this is. No way he would agree to this. And what Ms. Heard then expressed to me was that the lawyer, the woman, had laughed at her and said, "Oh, he knows. Yes, he knows everything."
Huh. That feels kind of rude.
Which sent her into a tailspin.
I mean, that's
So by
maybe
the time
not
she arrived
unfair.
in Australia,
If somebody laughed at me,
that was sunk very deep into her.
that's
her
speculation.
psyche. I mean, so much so that
That's speculation.
what really surprised me was that
He needs to focus on what
she kept
happened,
saying,
what was said, what he saw.
"I'm not even in your will. I'm not even in your will."
Oh, that probably pissed her off.
I thought that was an odd thing to say. Especially since I don't think anybody had had time to change wills or anything of that nature.
His kids are probably in his will.
So those things just didn't, it felt wrong.
Yeah, probably
she
felt
could
gross.
not let go of the fact that I was in on this post-nup agreement, and that I was trying to trick her into essentially getting nothing if something were to happen.
And how did you respond to Ms. Heard?
said, I just told her those are not my intentions, you know. And at a certain point, you don't know what to do. I mean, the person is telling you, she's telling you, you don't trust me, you don't trust me, you don't trust me. And I can't speak about legal documents. I can't speak legalese. I can't explain to her these things. All I could do was
Nor should he. She
try
should
to
have her
calm
own
her down
attorney
and say that
explaining the post-nup to
I
her.
was not out to
And he has his own attorney.
screw her
writing it
over
for him.
or put her in a position that was uncomfortable.
Did that work?
These were stock.
His attorney's
normal
trying to
things
keep him
do.
focused.
It did not work. No. It
Based, Mom, this
escalated
is a
and
great
escalated
point.
and it turned into
They're going to argue
madness,
that she
chaos,
exacerbated his
Can
addiction,
you please
violence.
but she
can
very
you
much
please
wanted to be in the
describe
will.
that chaos and violence?
Yeah, explain the violence. That's. I hope his attorneys
Yes.
bring that up more in closing.
She was irate.
She wanted to be
was
in the will.
irate and she was possessed. And when I tried to remove myself, as I normally would from a situation, and that is to say, you know, as she's hammering me with sort of brutal words and you know,
Chat. The incident in Australia is fairly violent.
I don't
It's not good for
pardon
either of them. Just know that's what we're getting into
my
here. And it's
language, but I
going to be
remember
ugly, I imagine.
that it wasn't nice sort of being called an ass kisser to lawyers or
Ooh, annoyance.
a
Love-
pussy.
Oh, they're
that didn't
editing
fight for
out
her or stand up for her.
that she called him a pussy.
Um,
Interesting. It's consistent with the audio.
I
They're going to break for lunch
again,
before this gets
tried to
too
remove
intense,
myself
I
from the
think.
situation, but to no avail. As I literally, the house that they had rented for me in Australia was quite a large place. It was quite a bit of a labyrinth, you know, and a lot of rooms, a lot of extra rooms. So I would go to, well, I'll just cut to the chase.
Yes,
I
please.
think that I ended up locking myself in about at least 9
We haven't gotten to the
bedrooms,
tapes yet.
bathrooms that day, as she was banging on the doors and screaming obscenities and wanting to have a physical altercation.
I mean, they
So
could
how
object
did
as
it
to
come
wanting a
be that your
physical.
finger became
altercation.
injured?
There was at one point where I'd stayed in one of the
She's trying to narrow him in,
sitting on a
and it is
bathroom
hard.
floor, door locked. She's banging away, screaming, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly she stopped and I could hear her walk away. I could hear her sort of receding into the distance, if you will. And I you know, yes, yes, it became very emotional because you can't win for losing. There was
But what
nothing I could do
happened
to
next?
make her understand that I had, if that lawyer had in fact done that, and I did call my lawyer at the time, Jake Bloom, and I had him get these people on the phone.
Oh, this is why he called the lawyer a
And
bitch. They talked about it in opening.
I'm ashamed to say that I had taken, at that point when I was on the phone with him, I had
No, you
taken
need to explain it.
Miss Heard's words to heart, and I laid out a ration of
This makes sense.
I was very upset
This makes
that
sense.
she was pushed to that limit because I had
that
believed
she
it.
explodes on him and he calls the lawyers and is like,
and,
seriously, what the
uh,
fuck? That makes
in fact,
sense.
none of it had happened.
That makes a lot more context.
So
Because they talked about that in opening
it
statement
was all getting too crazy.
and characterized it much
And again,
differently.
I've been sober for many, many months from alcohol and substances, aside from the marijuana. And I left the place, the room that I was hiding in, or not hiding, locked myself into. And I
Apparently, the
went
lawyer
downstairs
is going to
in the house.
testify
There was
that he
downstairs
yelled
in the
at.
house.
But if
As soon as you
Heard
walk in the house,
manipulated
you can
that
go upstairs
situation,
or
it's not going to go
downstairs.
well for her when that
Downstairs,
lawyer
there was
testifies.
a sort of a rec area, pool table and such.
Interesting.
And there was a bar. And I was a mess. I was a wreck. I was shaking, and I just didn't understand why
He'd spent
all
the
this was
day.
happening. So I went behind the bar. I grabbed a bottle of vodka that was there and a shot glass and sat at the bar. She was nowhere around. And I poured myself 2 or 3 stiff shots of the vodka. First taste of alcohol I'd had in a long time. And then she came down to the bar and found me there. And of course started screaming, "Oh, you're drinking again, the monster," and all that.
You can see how he feels about that.
So she reached, she walked up to me and reached and grabbed the bottle of vodka, and then just kind of stood back and then hurled it at me, and it just went right past my head and smashed behind me. So
How did your
I
finger
stood
get
up.
severed?
And I walked behind the bar, and there was a larger bottle of vodka, the kind with the handle, on it.
It's a handle of vodka.
I grabbed that, and I went and I sat in my seat again. I opened the bottle, and I poured myself
dear.
a shot.
She
Drank it.
smashed the bottle of vodka. So he grabbed a bigger
Yes,
bottle
sir.
of vodka.
Flinging insults left, right, and center.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
not going to go well. In
She
this
then
fight, you
grabbed
can
that
see
bottle.
it. You can see it. Yes, keep
and,
reading, I know.
And threw that at me. And the way that the bar was situated, and where Miss Heard was. So if
There are photos of a lot of
I could
this in
show
Australia.
you, so if
He wants to stand up and act it out.
this is the bar
Okay.
where the glass was, and the bottles. If this was the bar and I was sitting here like this, she would grab the bottle and she would go there. She went there. And so I was leaning
This actually makes
like
it easier to
this
understand
in the chair,
as to how this all happened.
looking
I
at her.
appreciate
First
this.
bottle went, then got the other bottle, shot, takes the second bottle, which is the larger one. I'm in this position again, and my hand is on the edge of the bar, like that, and leaning over, the fingers.
Well, this makes more
Like
sense
that,
as
and,
to why it has crushing.
She threw the large
Injuries.
bottle, and it made contact
That
and
makes more
shattered.
sense.
Everywhere. And I honestly didn't feel the pain at first at all. I felt no pain whatsoever. What I felt,
Crushed his finger
was,
between the bottle and the bar.
um,
That makes more
I
sense.
felt heat. I felt heat, and I felt as if something were dripping down my hand, And then I looked down, and realized that the tip of my finger had been severed, and
However, people have
I
differing
was
stories about where they
looking
found the tip of the
directly
finger.
at my bones sticking out, and the
Oof.
the meaty portion of the inside of your finger.
Yep.
And blood was just pouring out. And at that point, I think that I went into some sort of,
I hope that his
I don't
attorney
know what a nervous
asks
breakdown feels like.
why he told the
But
hospital
that's
he had.
probably the closest
cut
that I've
his
ever
finger.
been. Nothing made sense. And I knew in my mind and in my heart, this is not life. This is not life. No one should have to go through this. And as I said, this feeling of being in the middle of some sort of nervous breakdown, I started to
Or
write
shock.
with my
Yep.
blood, in my own blood, on the walls. Little reminders from our past that essentially represented lies that she had told me and lies that I had caught her in. And then the next thing, amongst all the madness, I would again hide in the bathroom or wherever, and I texted Dr. Kipper and I said, "You might want to come over. I've cut my finger off here."
Which finger was cut, Mr. Depp?
He's going to have to explain what he means by
looking one.
the funny
It's the
looking one.
middle finger.
He's going to have to explain what he
Here,
means
you can
by
see
I've
the-
cut my finger off here.
Well, you can see all the sort of
He's like, the one that looks all
the-
fucked up. This
from
one.
the initial wound. All these bones up here were crushed, and it looked like Vesuvius, And
So
so
that's an image.
This
That's,
part of my
That's
finger
an
now
image.
is so that because of not.
but the
having
crushing
used
makes
the
sense with
tip
how big
here,
the bottle was and it
this
getting
is,
stuck between the bar and the bottle. The crushing
basically,
injuries make sense.
Arthritis that kicks into the joint once that
more than like a knife that cleanly cuts it
upper part
through,
of the
which is
finger
her
is mangled.
argument.
So is that the right middle finger?
right middle. Yes.
The weight of the
And is
bottle
that
makes
your
sense with
dominant
the
hand?
crushing.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Mr. Depp, after Ms. Heard threw the vodka bottle at you and severed your finger,
Vesuvius.
what,
That's
if
a
anything,
takeaway.
did she say when she saw the injury?
I don't recall anything, but just
Then
it was
stop
almost
there.
like white noise, just someone yelling. It was just a high pitched, constant attack of insults. It was just
It was
jumbled
just white
words
noise.
to
Just
me
stop
in
there.
a very high frequency, and I was in a bit of shock.
It's fair
I
to
was
not
in
remember.
shock.
Just don't try to fill in.
You mentioned that you reached out to Dr. Kipper. Did you receive medical attention after that?
His attorney's doing a good job of
Yes,
keeping this on track without wandering. 'Cause
Jerry
this is
Judge.
important testimony.
Malcolm Connolly. I believe Debbie Lloyd was there. Yes, Debbie Lloyd was there. Ben King had arrived as well.
Who is Ben King?
Ben King he's essentially he's a house.
I'm getting
sort
wiggly.
of an estate manager, and we worked together in London a few times, and he's a wonderful guy. So I brought Ben along to Australia to manage everything. He's very good and very nice.
I want a house
and
manager.
then
Needs to happen.
there was also I mentioned Malcolm
Debbie Lloyd is the
and Jerry.
nurse,
They were
chat.
there as well.
She testified via video
Which,
deposition.
if any of the medical professionals that you saw that day, did you tell what happened to your finger?
When Malcolm and
That's a good follow-up because this needs to come out as to what he said or didn't say.
when they took me to first we went to Malcolm's
What did you say or not say?
apartment where he was staying while we were shooting the film, and tried to clean my hand because I had worked the day before, and obviously when you're playing pirate, Captain Jack or whatever, you're covered. They paint with alcohol, with rubbing alcohol. They paint dirt all into your hands
I like
and
that
into your
the
face.
cameras
and
decided
everything.
that this is what we need to zoom in
So-
on.
They were worried about getting my finger clean, so they tried doing that at Malcolm's.
Did they dump
And
alcohol on it?
Jefferson,
Just take the
we
vodka and
got
just
to get
dump
to
it right
emergency
on.
room, and we got to get hold of the tip of his finger.
Vasquez
So
is
went to
doing
the
a good job
emergency room.
keeping him on track during this very important part of the
Doctor asked
testimony.
me what happened, and I lied to him. I
And
said
that's what
that
we
I
need to
had,
understand.
Smashed it in these large accordion doors that it got caught in the accordion doors.
Why would you lie about that?
Thank you for following up immediately.
I lied because I didn't feel, I didn't want to disclose that it was what it was. I didn't want to disclose that it had been, I didn't want to disclose that it had been misheard, that it had thrown a vodka bottle at me and then took my finger off. I didn't want to get her in trouble. I didn't want to, I tried to just keep things as copacetic and as
I wonder if he'll
as
address the media.
easy as possible.
I wonder
for
if it
everyone.
crossed his
I
mind.
did not want to put her name in that mix.
Why? Why
Did
didn't you
tell
want
Dr.
to put
Kipper
her
what
name
had
in that
actually
mix?
happened to your finger?
Yes.
After you returned from the hospital, where did you go?
I went to Malcolm Connolly's apartment and slept on his couch.
And to the extent that you know, where was Ms. Heard during this time?
Ms. Heard was, I wasn't there, but I had, it was clear that she had to, she needed to leave. And I'd asked them to get her on a flight from Melbourne or Sydney or wherever back to Los Angeles.
Why did you ask for that?
She had to go.
I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to have any more arguments. I was, for all intents and purposes, I was just done.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you a picture. If we could please pull up plaintiff's exhibit.
And we're going to get into pictures of the
145.
injuries. Just a heads up, if this is triggering for you, we're going to get into some of the pictures of the place in Australia and the injuries. And then the court should be breaking for lunch in about 20 minutes. The date of the Australia incident was not that long after the wedding It was not that long. I don't remember exactly how long, but it was not that long. So if these injury photos are going to be triggering to you, I love having all of you
Mr. Depp,
here, but know
What is this a
that,
picture of?
you know,
That is,
you can take a beat
that's
if you
me
need
in the
to.
emergency room.
This will probably be
I
published to the
see,
jury.
I see a detail that I'd forgotten.
Probably the cigarette burn on
which
his
is
face. The doctor talked about. Yep.
Ms. Heard had taken my cigarette from the ashtray and stomped it out in my face here.
Could you mark on the screen where you see that?
This happened while he was filming.
It's right above that green dot.
And do you know who took this picture?
I do not know.
These have not been published to the jury yet.
Could we please publish this to the jury?
There we go. So now
Evidence?
Yes, please.
Any
she's
objection?
publishing it to the jury. So
45
now it
evidence,
should come up
published to the jury.
on our screens as well. And if it doesn't, I'll find another feed. We've seen some of these pictures already, but we're going to see more of them. And just
And
know
so, Mr. Depp, now that the jury can see the photograph, can
that
you
these
again
are
explain what
the
that green
evidence.
dot is identifying?
Just above just above the green
this is what he was
dot
talking about with his hands
is
for Jack Sparrow.
a wound from Ms. Heard taking my cigarette and
Thanks, Jordy. We're trying to balance
this
it.
is after the finger had gone away, and she stubbed it out in my face and
After
cheek.
the finger was injured.
So that's the result of that.
If we could please take this down, and I'd like to show you, Mr. Depp.
I'm going to have to go look for that in Pirates 5. But in Pirates, it kind of just fits in with Jack Sparrow if he has a scar on his face or what have you. But this did shut down production, and we're going to talk about it. She's writing something that her lawyer's looking at.
Yep. It's
But this has to be hard for him too.
What is
He
this,
put
a
his
picture of
glasses
Mr.
on
Depp?
to look at these. I like that he has
the
tinted
remains
lenses
of
like
my
mine.
finger.
All right, so we're going to get a severed
And
finger in
was this
photo
taken shortly after you were injured.
once they say publish.
I believe this was taken at the emergency room, I'd imagine.
Also,
I'd
the
move to
putting out
this
cigarettes
into
on people is
evidence, but
not
I'd like to also
uncommon.
warn the jury and the people in the
All right.
audience that this is a very graphic picture.
All right. Any
Just a
objection?
warning. This is a graphic photo,
Right,
but this is
144.
what the jury is seeing, and this is what we are going to see too. So if medical stuff makes you squeamy, well, now's the time. That's the Vesuvius
down.
that he was
Thank you.
referring to.
Mr. Depp, how long after your finger was injured did you return to LA?
No, most of this is not new information.
After the emergency room, the following day, I was sent to they'd found a surgeon in Australia, so that I could go. They wanted me to take have X-rays taken and all that. So we went to that doctor.
Heard
The
describes this
finger
as a 3-day
surgeon.
hostage situation. So when we get to her testimony, it's going to be very
and,
different than what he's
He
explaining
asked me
here.
what happened to my finger, and I again lied, and I stuck to the story that it was smashed in an accordion, a large accordion door, and he looked at me as if I were lying, and the next thing I heard was, "Sir, that is a wound of velocity."
I'm surprised they didn't object to
And,
hearsay on that, but the medical records are going to come in. They're objecting
Your Honor,
now.
This is a communication in the context of medical treatment.
I'll sustain the objection.
It's not offered for the truth. That shouldn't have been sustained.
So Mr. Depp, this was a surgeon you saw in Australia.
Yes.
When did you return to Los Angeles after seeing that surgeon?
This judge is very interesting on hearsay.
I believe it was probably the next day, where it might have been Kipper or someone who had hooked me up with a wonderful, a great expert in reconstruction of hands, fingers, digits, whatever. So I went to see the surgeon, and we prepped for surgery, pretty quickly.
And what type of surgery did you have on your finger?
The majority of this was all missing. And,
I think this judge has been consistent with the other
Essentially-
witnesses on how she rules.
to some degree hollowed out.
The hearsay is kind of
if
a
you will,
quirk
'cause
of
the bone
hers.
had shattered,
So we'll see.
and then there was the bone that was sticking out down there.
We can see what he's doing.
So he had to
We've got
take-
some of the medical records in already
do a
through the
skin
other
graft
doctor.
from this part of my hand,
I don't know about the surgeon.
and graft it onto my finger to give me a finger again.
Anything else that was done to your finger to stabilize it?
I don't think it was initially that they put the pin in. I think the pin, feels like the pin came later. I'm not sure, but
At some point,
you just, I had to go after the surgery. It was bandaged up, and they give you all kinds of things on what to do, what not to do, keep it elevated or this or that. And I just walked away with a very large middle finger. It was all wrapped up to like this, and then
a very large middle finger.
you know,
I think there will be pictures of that as well. We've seen some already.
medicated. They've given me shots in there and such.
The cast will matter.
How long did you wear that bandage that you just described?
Well, the bandage was from the time of the surgery all the way through the remainder of finishing Pirates of the Caribbean, which was
You have a
I
wild
think I
George
finished.
hates being on
The
camera.
injury took place in March. Finished Pirates of the Caribbean 5, I believe, in August,
It's
beginning of
gonna be
August,
a while
July.
before we get to Amber's side.
And you
So
have
there
a-
was a bandage on it the whole time. What I had to do was wear, because of, there's a special effects trick that they had planned. Basically, whatever bandage I had on,
Did they green screen it?
as long as they could, they would put more little green dots, for example, on the splint and the finger and all that, and the bandages, so that in post-production they could use what's called computer-generated imagery,
weeks.
CGI, to erase the bandage and replace it with a normal finger. That's how we finished the film.
We've got about 10 minutes till the court breaks for lunch.
If we could please pull up plaintiff's.
I think they're going to try to
Exhibit 61.
finish up the Australia incident and the photos from that incident. So I am covering the Kardashian trial a little. There's no cameras in the courtroom, a sketch artist. So I talk about it a little in today's
the second
podcast, and I'll be trailing along with it too.
Third.
It's very interesting to see the voir dire. The jurors were not thrilled with being in trial with the Kardashians, and a lot of people didn't have complimentary
Sorry,
things
this
to
is a
say.
series of pictures, and to spare everyone, I don't think I'll show you the immediate injury again. This was one right here.
Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. So they're going to go through and
Mr. Depp, do
authenticate
you
these
recognize this
photos
picture
so that they can be used as
Yes, I do.
exhibits.
and what's reflected in this picture?
This was taken in the surgeon's office, where I'd go in occasionally. Well, I had to go in every few days to have it checked out for infections and such. And so the finger, non-finger, was
The injured finger.
wrapped quite heavily, and there was this medicated, kind of greasy medicated thing on top of the wound itself. And this, I believe, seems like when the pin was in here, and the wrapping is, the bandage is, well, I had my choice, and I thought, well, may as well take the kitty bandages,
I like
dinosaurs.
that he just wants
and
to be
hearts
entertained.
and unicorns.
We saw more pictures of the
said,
burn on his cheek with
At
the
least-
doctor a
at
few days
least
ago.
to have some humor to deflect the pain.
Your Honor, I'd like to move Plaintiff's Exhibit
So
61 into evidence.
This is new
You want
evidence
the whole exhibit or just this picture?
coming in.
If we could publish the whole exhibit.
You want the whole picture, the
Yeah.
whole exhibit? Any objections?
This is multiple pages. That's why they're asking about the whole
61,
exhibit.
but You just want to publish this part of
Yes.
61? Okay, thank you.
So no objections to any of this coming in. This is the bandage on the finger.
So how long after
Again, with the
your
humor.
injury was this picture taken?
I'm not surprised.
After the initial injury,
Yes.
If she asks him if
I'd
he
say
used
no
Amica
more
cream on it,
than-
I will fall out, but I don't think she will because it's
seemed
too
to me
serious of an
no more than
incident for
5
him.
days, a week.
But I
And
appreciate
how
it.
long was this bandage on your hand for?
Well, I was wearing bandages all the way up until I finished the film, and then yeah, up through August for sure, and then beyond, I had to keep it. I had to keep it covered. I had to
They're
keep it
expecting
protected.
6 weeks for the entire trial. So
Do you
both
recall how
sides
long
together.
after the injury that how long after the surgery the pins were removed from your finger?
No, Mama Rocks, I imagine that this cost the
I
movie a
would
lot
say-
more to have to digitally replace his middle finger. And with the
Maybe
shutdowns,
I
it was a
think
thing.
It was about 2 or 3 days, because I remember that there was maybe more, but I just remember that the pain seemed to be getting worse and worse as Debbie would rate it.
This goes into the
you know,
healing.
from
And we saw this in
is
her
this an
notes.
8 out of 10? Is this a 3 out of 10? That kind of thing. At a certain point, it became kind of a 12 out of 10, because
And we're going to get into this. This was in the nurse's notes from her
it felt-
testimony
it
as well.
felt hot, very, very, very hot, and it felt there was throbbing. It was like it was throbbing, and the pin in there. It was like I could feel the pin in there. So we called the surgeon. I called the surgeon.
T. Hammer, he did
told
not
him-
ask for a divorce.
Actually,
She
I
ended
think
up
it might have been
asking,
Debbie
but it was
Lloyd,
quite a
actually,
while
called,
after
but,
this.
I knew I had to see the surgeon again because something felt very wrong, and I
Or getting to the MRSA.
went there, and he removed all the bandages, and he found that
He went, oh
that my
shit.
finger was indeed infected, and that I had contracted MRSA, MRSA.
Medically
like a-
resistant staph infection.
I believe it's like the flesh-eating disease or something.
MRSA's not good.
It was a pretty,
Not
it
good
was
at
a
all.
pretty grotesque sight. After that, with the pin in and what they had to do to save it.
Mr. Depp, while
Yeah,
your
so then they
finger
had
was
to try to
injured and
save his
healing,
finger.
Did you ever take any opiates during that time?
No, ma'am. No.
He never
No.
reported her.
Your Honor, I'm about to switch gears, so if
All right.
it makes
We can
sense to
do
take
that.
our lunch break.
It does.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our hour lunch break. Come back at 2 o'clock. Just
It's
make
only
sure you
1
do not
hour
discuss the
today.
case and do not do any outside research.
Till 2
We'll
o'clock.
See you at 2.
2 o'clock Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. I'm going to get through some questions, and then I'm going to take a quick break and start an afternoon stream. I don't think we're going to see pictures of the MRSA finger. I sure hope that we don't. There we go. We've got the technical name, but, medication resistant staph. It's bad.
And again, sir,
MRSA's
since you're still
bad.
testifying, you cannot discuss your testimony with your attorneys or with anybody else, okay? All right,
Yep.
see everybody at 2? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So they're all rising for the jury to leave the courtroom for lunch, and then they will leave. I'm going to leave this feed up just to see if they approach the bench. Oh, the judge is already off the bench. I like watching what happens when the jury leaves the courtroom. It's always interesting to me. See who files in, who files out, see what we can see of who's in the audience. He's still standing. Well, and we're done. So now we're going to go to questions, and then I will start a second stream for after lunch. I'm going to do that real quick now while we are getting to your questions. You guys have been amazing this morning. We have there's a wild George sighting. Bye, George. We have had over, 8,000 people here in chat. We will absolutely be doing that after lunch, an hour from now. Don't forget to do the YouTube things. I'm going to answer your questions, but first I'm going to create this new broadcast, and I can't do both. Well, at least not. At least I can't do both well. Let's be honest about that. So I will be doing that while taking questions. It's good to see you guys. Ali C is saying there's a Rust incident report out. I will go look for that this evening after this testimony is done. I don't even think we're going to get to cross-examination today. I think we are going to still be on direct for the rest of today, which is going to be wild. But I think that maybe at the end of the day, depending on how many more incidents they want to go through. They've covered the plane, which was a big one. They've covered Australia, which was a big one, but they are going to have to cover the lead up to the divorce. They're going to have to cover that incident in the stairway. So there are things that they are going to still have to cover in this case before it gets to cross-examination, which will at least take a day. So I think we are probably in this through the rest of the day tomorrow. For the afternoon. So we are in this through at least tomorrow afternoon with him. The court does not take testimony on Friday. So with that, we're going to have to get into it. I don't remember if Amber alleged abuse prior to the finger incident. I think the plane incident is prior to this. And she alleged that she was kicked in the back during that plane incident. They are not going to go through all 14 incidences, Mikkel. I think they're going to go through the ones that they think are the most common, but they're not going to go through every single incident. So that's what I'm suspecting for sure from this. And we will probably not get to Amber Heard until her part of the case, though Johnny Depp's team can call her. This is a 6-week trial. So I think we have another week or two before we even get to Amber Heard's testimony. So that's what I'm thinking for that. So I have created the new stream. Tech, if you'll just add the new stream link into our chat once it populates, I would appreciate it. And then let's get to some questions. Oh, that's the courtroom feed. I should have turned off the audio. I'm sorry. I should have turned off the audio when I switched away from the feed. I just wanted to see if anything happened. So nothing did except for that annoying sound. Woo, you guys, that was a lot of testimony this morning. The wine that was discussed earlier is looking like it's coming in at about $500 a bottle. But we know Johnny Depp has famously spent quite a lot of money on wine. Thank you for the super sticker. I'm going to try to get to all of these. If I can't, I will let you know. I've gotten the wine for $400 in certain places, but it's famous for a special occasion. Thank you, Joshua C. Walsh. I mean, I don't think I've ever spent that much on a bottle of alcohol. Red Queen said, tacky comment alert. Is Depp's attorney a seasoned trial lawyer, a true litigator? Her lack of control is bugging me. It could have a bad impact on the jury, and compelling points are getting lost. This might be part of their trial strategy. I have not looked too in depth into the team's background with this. I mean, he's got a very seasoned team around him, but it also is trial strategy. It definitely, during these critical incidents, they have tightened it up, and that might be part of me trying to wiggle my seat around because now I'm getting wiggly. That might be because these incidents matter the most. So tighten it up where it matters and give him the space to tell his story where it doesn't. Some of that might be trying to honor what he wants as a client. Question, did calling him out the other one of many objections good move to hopefully wake the judge up to the no. Depp snapping back at the lawyer objecting isn't great for me. I don't know what the jury will think about it, but the judge has really not gotten in depth in the hearsay objections. Anytime it seems like it's a statement that's offered by somebody else, she's sustaining these hearsay objections when they're not hearsay, which is very odd to me that the judge is like, well, just move on. So it's interesting that those hearsay objections are getting sustained, even though when some of them are clearly not hearsay. She also doesn't seem to want to hear the attorneys argue over why it's not hearsay. Hearsay has a lot of exceptions, and some of this testimony falls into it, but also some of these witnesses are going to come testify. And so does it matter ultimately? Is it going to hurt one party or the other? No, but it does break up the flow. But Johnny Depp winking at the attorney and being like, good one. When he objects, it's his job to object. Cross-examination is, I worry, going to get combative, which definitely is going to show a different side of Johnny Depp. He, I think, for the jury, needs to show consistency in how he testifies on direct and on cross. We will see if he can do that. I wonder if Elon has the other half of the heart. I mean, I guess we'll see. The chat was saying Eve Barlow does. If they begin to object more, do you think it could be used to frustrate Johnny? Yes. He seemed a bit annoyed earlier. They could do it to annoy him. But generally it seems that they are very restrained. I will say, I don't always love one of the attorneys on the defense team, but the defense has been very restrained in their objections. There are numerous objections here that the defense team could make that they are not making. So they have been more restrained in their objections than they need to be. There is lots of room for them to object, and that's strategy too. I think they're just objecting when it actually, like, there's particularly items of evidence that they don't want to get in, like being told it's a velocity injury on the finger. The surgeon needs to come in and say that. And again, the defense knows, just like we all do, that you can't put the shit back in the horse. I mean, some attorneys say you can't unring the bell. Once the jury hears things, they've heard it. Some of them might be like, velocity injury, I want to hear more about that. That sounds more like a hurling bottle than a accordion door or a knife, as Amber Heard's team is going to say that he cut off his own finger. Where the tip of the finger was found is going to become very relevant to how the finger got severed. But it's, they showed you the picture of the injury, and those of you that have worked with knives can be like, well, I don't know. Does it look like he cut it off himself? The jury's going to get to decide that with medical testimony to assist. So I think they've been restrained in their objections. I don't think they're trying to throw him off his testimony. That would come across as petty. I think they've been restrained. Jesse said, I have ADHD and would not be able to function without my meds. How is it okay to steal someone's meds? It's not okay. And it's in the notes, but it's also their relationship. So what he chooses to do about it is part of it. And he didn't put his foot down and leave at that point. There are many more incidents ahead where she was angry, but it's in the notes from the nurse. I have an LV tattoo on my finger. Ooh, I want to see that. Joshua C. Walsh. I'm a big fan of the Louis. I don't have my Louis in here. Super deep, emotional, meaningful, and I don't regret it at all. I have lots of tattoos and I love them. So I feel you. LK said, as an advocate with both bipolar and ADHD, dark humor is a big thing in our community to cope with pain. It can get very dark. Those who understand dark humor understand. And again, I worked in the DA's office. Our dark humor was inappropriately dark sometimes. Well, I mean, I guess it depends who you're asking. It always came from a good place of trauma. I don't understand why his lawyers don't talk about talking less. He has to express himself authentically. Here's the thing. You worry with, this is why I don't wear my hair down, because I can't literally stop messing with it. You worry that when someone tries to restrain their natural pattern of speech, that it comes across as calculated or inauthentic. So if he's trying to focus on how he's talking, it can read across as he's trying to focus on what he's saying or embellishing or concocting. So it's a very fine line between how you help someone tell their story so they still seem authentic, and trying to refrain their speech too much or restrain their speech too much can come across as stilted or as rehearsed or as untrue. And so that's a very, very particular balance. I'm going to try to get to all of these super chats as quickly as I can. Carrie, thank you for sharing on OxyContin for pain in the last 5 years, also on hydrocodone. If I miss a dose within an hour or two, I'm in withdrawal. And that's very much what Johnny Depp was talking about with his experience. Notice that Amber blinked a lot at the looking for a fight comment and looked down as if trying to appear stressed at that comment. What a faker. We will see. I mean, we will see what the jury takes away from how she's interacting. Joshua said when he refers to what other people do on planes, isn't he trying to stress that there's different behavior that is normal on private planes versus what people do on commercial flights? He can't testify to that. He's trying to be like, well, some people drink, some people do this, but he can't testify to that. Also, bars at commercial airports are quite busy. So, but that's not proper testimony. Giving kind of vague overall, like some people drink before flights, is not a personal knowledge. And they could say lacks personal knowledge, lacks foundation. It's kind of a vague characterization. I don't think it matters at the end of the day, which is why they didn't object. 50 feisty and fabulous. He's waited almost 5 years to finally tell his story, and he's paying everyone to be there on his behalf. As his attorney, I would let him talk as long as the defense doesn't object. It shows he's a pacifist. And this is a lot of him wanting to tell his story. But when he starts getting snappy, you're going to see a different side with the defense a little bit. Thank you for the super sticker. I like hearing his own words, even if it makes me sad. I agree. And I think the jury will like hearing him from the heart. He looks sad when he has to stop talking. And again, they're going to pick up on that. I think so. I can really get on my soapbox about chronic pain and how we have been treated since this war on opioids, which isn't due to prescription opioids any longer. We are the collateral damage. Janice, that is a very long conversation that I am happy to have. I have thoughts about how we treat pain. Haven't they changed their anti-SLAPP law since this was filed in Virginia? Yes, I know it's happening quite a long time after filing. Yes, they have. And I get more into Virginia's anti-SLAPP in kind of the case brief of this case. Why is he not going very hard on Heard? This is a dynamic I think we will see the experts discuss about why he isn't. It could be the relational dynamic that he is still kind of protecting her. It could be some shame and embarrassment that he was treated this way and has to spill it all to the public. It could be that he doesn't want to be perceived as the obsessive ex-husband hell-bent on abuse. So it depends on how people see his testimony as to how they will categorize that. I think when we see experts, they will categorize this as part of that cycle of behavior. Johnny has not dealt with ADHD, but also tinnitus. This has to be difficult for him. He's called his mental health issues the circus. He's also blind in one eye, which we learned yesterday. Will cross-examination look bad if they jackhammer or constantly interrupt him to just answer the question if he rambles? We'll have to see it. I will give you my present sense impression. Lawyer joke. I will give you my present sense impression as we get into it, but it's up to the jury to whether it looks bad. But Heard's team has to remember they're playing both to the jury, which is the most important, but also to the court of public opinion. I can handle how JD speaks, but I'm having to recall of the kids in the backseat. Are we there yet? There's some of that for sure. How do they select expert witnesses? Some expert witnesses are appointed by the court. Some are picked by the lawyers and agreed upon. So combination of both of those things. Hopefully. People who experience trauma and abuse often disassociate when speaking about it, probably why he says like one does or you would. They need someone to come in and explain that to the jury, though, because our own natural understanding all comes from our different experiences, but they have to make sure the jury's on the same page with those experiences. Melanie said he's still very humble and private. I could never be famous. I think he's definitely showing the difficulty of being famous and really not having like a safe space to detox and not feeling safe with Amber Heard being around when he needed to detox. And then why he didn't feel safe when she was around, because she was withholding meds. Detox from alcohol is so much more dangerous than detox from opioids. I don't know about that. You can die from alcohol withdrawal. I think that's true for opioids as well. Sounds like he was detoxing from both, though. Paige, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I'm sure we will get some testimony if it's needed about that. If the jury is made of a lot of younger males, do you think Amber Heard's demeanor will come across as looking like a nagging, non-caring, greedy, which we'll have to see how she presents when she testifies. But her attorney has that demeaning, overwhelming vibe, and that might not help this jury either. The Amber Heard lady lawyer lied. If you go back, Wyatt testified that I have never heard. He said that he has never seen him physically harm anyone. Amber Heard's lawyer said, you testified that you never heard. Can she get in trouble for this? No, it's all kind of contemporaneous in front of the jury, and I don't know if it will matter all that much. But if it becomes a point to point out on appeal, they can. I don't know if it's going to matter all that much. But it didn't seem malicious. Her style of cross-examination, though, is very berating. Is the jury asked to keep a bit of a poker face? No, but they naturally do. There seems to be a solemnity to juries. They realize that what they're doing is important and has some gravity to it. So they generally try to, but no, juries, you can tell their facial expressions, and it also depends on the personality. Some people have much more expressive faces. Some people don't want to show that they're, one way or the other. I know that people were in the gallery were crying yesterday during testimony. So we'll see what happens. LK Reedon, it's a point well taken. Is it possible that his attorney is trying to show that his drug use or drug abuse wasn't the issue because the abuse continued after detox? Perhaps, Kit Kat, and perhaps it has to be explained because Amber Heard's team is making it something different than what Depp's perception of it is. So it has to be absolutely discussed. And a lot of addiction is going to be discussed. It seems to me that he is still affected by her, and his answers towards her are not heavy hitting. I feel for him having to talk about your abuser whilst they are in the same room. And again, this is why they're going to need expert testimony to explain, but also it definitely goes against this characterization of him as the abusive or obsessive ex-husband is what they said. Obsessive ex-husband hell-bent on revenge. She's definitely trying to look sweet today. She knew this is the testimony that was coming today. She knew Australia was coming today. Do you think he is better at talking about detox? I think he seemed more comfortable talking about the detox for sure than he does about the relationship. I'm surprised he remembers so clearly. Some withdrawals feel like a fever dream. Hot showers are clutch, though. He definitely talked about the parts he remembered, but they weren't going day by day. So he's able to just say what he remembers. They weren't saying on Tuesday was it this, on Wednesday when it was this, so he could give his overall impression of particular instances. And they've also talked about this for years, and they've talked about these instances in depositions, etc. Sometimes I feel like he's finally able to explain it to her. There were a few times where it looked like he was looking at her. He might have been trying to be heard. You heard from their couples therapist that when they were in couples counseling together, he couldn't get a word in edgewise. This might be his time to say, I am trying to explain. But the didn't want to fail and stuff really was, I felt very heartfelt. I'll be celebrating 10 years clean in November. Detox and withdrawals are no joke. I was hospitalized 2 times during them. The pain is unimaginable. Cora, congratulations to you. 10 years is a massive accomplishment. Thank you for sharing your experience with everyone who has not had that experience. He went through huge lengths not to inconvenience her lifestyle. That's a huge point. Absolutely. And they're saying he's inconvenienced her a lot by dragging her to Virginia for this suit. the hot shower was self-harm and she just watched. It might have been coping, but she was the one withholding the meds. I will be interested to see what her take on that is. Probably, well, the doctor said don't give it till 4, so I was just doing what I was told. We will see what she says. It might also be control. There was an international bed pooing. Nothing will surprise me anymore. Let the triple D commence. I think the bed poop incident was in Los Angeles, but we'll get there. This judge is biased. I think this judge has been consistent in their rulings. The thing is, we're not to Depp's side yet, so we're not seeing them make the same kind of objections that Heard's side is making. I think the judge is consistent. I don't agree with all her rulings on hearsay, but she has seemed consistent so far. He does. I agree. I absolutely agree. Thank you for the super sticker. I also wonder if they're Erlen lenses. They are definitely tinted. And I don't think they're tinted to be cool. But for those of us with ADHD, the tinted lenses help very much. Aussie here, we call BS when we see it. Australia called BS on the dogs coming in for sure. I think that I don't love all the judge's rulings. I think the judge has been consistent, and I will take consistent any day. At least they know what they're getting. Depp's team can choose to fight out some of these hearsay objections, or they can just choose to ask the question another way. They seem to be going with ask the question another way. And when they need to approach, every time they've needed to approach on an issue that mattered, Heard's team has won that objection. So I think it's better, or Depp's team has won those objections. Apologies. Every time it's mattered, Depp's team has won the objection when they've gone up to the bench and explained it. Not fighting over every single detail with the judge means that they can pick the battles that matter most for the evidence that matters most. Some of this stuff is just rephrasing the question and moving on, which is why they're not battling it out. Some of that is strategy. Going on a knockdown drag out with the judge about the fact that these are not offered for the truth every single time might change the way those rulings when it matters are going. In opening, when there was an objection, Depp's team won. Throughout this, when there have been bigger evidentiary objections and they've gone to sidebar, Depp's team has won those objections. It's more important to stay on the proper side of the judge so that the judge is not mad at you than to fight out these little details that don't matter too much at the end of the day. I saw that Tokyo Toni was removed. Tokyo Toni, being Blac Chyna's mother, was removed from the trial yesterday. I tweeted about it a little bit. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I'm at the Emily D. Baker over there. Johnny Depp losing Pirates 6 isn't the only one losing out. Hundreds of cast and crew member also lose. I can't believe how Amber Heard hurt so many people due to her op-ed. Well, we will see if the jury finds damages there, because Heard's team is arguing that Depp lost Pirates 6 because of drug use, not because of Amber Heard. Excuse me, said I had MRSA from a long cut on my side. I was on, I'm not pronouncing that medication via a PICC line for 5 weeks. That must have been miserable. The cut was an inch-long infection. Track was hip to shoulder. I'm so sorry to hear it. And that must have been miserable. I had coworkers that got MRSA at the courthouse. It's miserable and scary. I'm a little worried about Johnny Depp's snarks at defense. I hope so too. I hope he reins it in before cross. I hope so too. Because if he doesn't, it'll play into what they are going to argue about him. And that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to rein in the snark, but he has to. Blinking a lot is a sign of trying to process information. Good to know. This is a lot coming at all of them, and this is stressful for everyone in this courtroom. I don't believe Johnny. Have a great day, Emily. It's totally fair. And not everyone will. Super sticker, thank you. Ashley Vincent, I found you when lots of BS was flying around between various creators, but I am ever grateful that the nonsense because of the community is everything to me. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. I love this community too. I love seeing all of your questions about this case. I think they will be able to use the audio they took of each other. And I think we will see that. They referenced it today. I don't think they'll play it while he's on the stand, but they still could later because they're going to need to authenticate it, especially the audio that he took. But yes, there are a variety of ways that audio comes in because it's being offered against a party opponent. Sometimes it's difficult with Johnny Depp being a prior consistent or inconsistent statement. I think we will see some of that audio come in. When we will see that audio come in, I am not exactly sure, but we will see it. So there's that. I'm going to take a few more questions, and then we've got just about a half an hour. I'm going to shut down this stream. The other stream is populated and we'll put it in the chat. I am going to do the lunchy things, and we are going to be back from 1 p.m. Central, or, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, through the end of the court day at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The big question for the afternoon is, are we going to get to cross-examination? Sandra, I get this question quite a lot. Can Amber Heard be charged for lying about abuse and go to prison? No, I think she should do prison. That's not on the table here. And I've seen this question a lot. That is not how our system works. If she lies under oath and is held in contempt of court, is there an off possibility that as being held in contempt of court or perjuring herself, she could theoretically go to jail because it's a crime? Possibly. Is that a very far off possibility? Yes. Is it theoretically possible? Yes. I mean, I've tried perjury cases. They are few and far between. They are rare. But we also just saw Sherry Papini plead guilty to not perjury, but to lying to make a police report, just like Jussie Smollett. But lying about the abuse in the op-ed or lying about the abuse, this is the trial to handle that. This is a civil trial. Reputations are at issue here. Money is at issue here. Johnny Depp never made a police report. He never pursued her, and we're starting to understand why. He never pursued criminal sanction for her. So that is not on the table. The police can't just sua sponte be like, well, you lied about this and ruined somebody's life. It's a crime. And some of these lies are very old, and he knew about them when they happened, but we're going to get into statute of limitations issues. So no, I don't think there is an outcome where we see Amber Heard going to jail in any way in any of this. This trial should be the end of all of this. So it's a hard trial to watch. It's very, very sad. It's just really, really sad. So the behavioral panel assessed Amber's body language in a deposition a year ago on YouTube. It's worth a watch. This is down the street from me. Tempted to pop over one day for a glimpse. I mean, you can line up and get a wristband for sure. I love it. Our court system is open. You can walk in and watch a trial. So if you want to see it in person and see what it feels like in that room, that's something that you can do. Yes, you need wristbands and stuff for this room, but it's something that you can do. Sandy, thank you so much for this this amazing compliment. This is the only chat I talk in. My channel and mods are the best they are. Don't like fighting chats, just want convos about trials. That's what we want too. Chats shouldn't be Thunderdome. We're creating a community here where we get to have conversation without all of the bullshit and the fighting and the name calling. And that's what we do. How much longer is there on this testimony for today? Until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So more than about 4 hours with the afternoon break, give or take. Can they appeal the ruling? Rulings can always be appealed. It might not go anywhere, but yes, rulings can always be appealed. What was interesting to me today is they were talking about the prenup and the postnup and the timing. Johnny Depp seemed to indicate she was delaying. I almost took away that he was saying she was delaying so there wouldn't be a prenup. It was interesting to me that she was so upset about the will. And we started to get Johnny Depp's explanation about why he was so angry with the lawyer that he called up and called a bitch. We heard that from, Umbridge and Opening, which is what I've been calling Amber Heard's female attorney because she grates the same way. So we heard it from Umbridge and Opening statement that Johnny Depp even called up the lawyer. She called up the lawyer and called her a bitch about this post-nup agreement. And now you're seeing Johnny Depp saying Amber Heard came flying in full of anger because a lawyer laughed at her and was like, he knows about all of this. So Amber's perception of what she was told from the lawyers is that Depp was almost plotting against him. This is my takeaways from what I'm hearing. And that she was fucking livid. And that sparked this entire fight in Australia that she described as a 3-day hostage situation. He talks about the severed finger, but that it was because of the lawyers. And he's like, yeah, I called up the lawyers and I was hot. I believed what she said. I called them up and I was hot. And that's going to be very interesting because that lawyer is going to testify. FYI, I'm alone and therefore replying to your comments. Thanks for the company. It's hard to watch this and not converse. And that's why I have this chat where we can have conversation, because yes, we all want to process this in real time with our people, and the law nerds are our people. We are all here because we are legally curious. Do you think they're having Miss Heard wearing white to look more innocent? She might be trying to do that. It might be the Lauren Bacall thing that we talked about earlier, that she's trying to give this effect of this, the woman that Johnny Depp loved earlier. She might be doing it to mess with him, to be like, remember, I'm the person that you loved. It might be manipulation towards him, towards the jury. It might be how she feels more comfortable. There's a lot of things it could be, for sure. It's an interesting choice after how severe her outfits were in the first week. Aaron said, if you were to guess right about now, who do you think has a stronger case? Really love your channel and coverage. We haven't seen any of Amber Heard's case yet. We haven't seen the way they're characterizing things. Johnny Depp has a hard case because of the vagueness with which the op-ed was written. It doesn't mean that the jury's going to be on her side, but this is a hard case to win. This case could very much go with all of you are toxic, no one defamed anyone, go away. It could end that way. So it just very much matters how the jury sees it. But Depp is presenting his side well. Some of his points are getting lost in some of the rambling, but all of this comes back around during closing arguments, which could take a day. I wonder if the judge will limit them. We could see 2 days of closing arguments easily, but we'll see. I think it's better for the attorneys to be concise and precise and hit the main points and get out with this jury, but we'll see. Are the jurors allowed to watch media on the trial? No, not until after. Not until they're done. No, they are not. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the next stream in the chat. I'm going to bounce off for just about a half an hour, and then I will be back with all of you. I hope that you are back after lunch. I'm sure there's other commentary that is staying up and running, but your girl needs a break. And I'm going to do a quick recap over on Instagram and on TikTok of what I saw in the first part. So I'm going to pop and do that real quick too. So if you follow me there, it's at the Emily D. Baker. Happy to have you here. Thank you, law nerds, for being law nerds. You guys are amazing. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to rejoin me at 1 p.m. as we come back to Johnny Depp being in the middle of his testimony. So with that, thank you for being here. I will see you guys shortly. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.